This is Wednesday, May 26, 2021, 6 p.m. This Board of Commissioners.
Mayor Hendricks.
Here.
Vice Mayor Price. Here. Commissioner Hodges.
Here.
Commissioner Andrews.
Here.
Commissioner Hudson.
Here.
First is public comment. Anyone that has
Impact fees for a few minutes. Doing the budget for the city. I would vote on this if I was in your position. Vote on probably the most fun to make a Deer Beach has roughly 4,300 residents over a $28 million budget. That's about 500 per. We've repeatedly understand as a board where you're right. Or government doesn't pay anything. They just use the residents. Tourism dollars. Does create a financial burden on the city. Not be any net financial, should be a net financial benefit from tourism to the city. Residents should not fund tourism. Hundreds of thousands of tourists visit Madeira Beach annually, but what is the fiscal impact of that tourism on the city? Parking revenue, that's a perfect revenue stream. Residents receive an annual pass, so tourism is paying that bill 100%. Residents are benefiting. Property taxes. Property taxes go to the county. He receives some of that money back, not all of it. So that's a negative redistribution. Sales tax, hotel tax. That's all paid to the state, and my guess, prove me wrong, is that, again, this is a negative redistribution to the city. Commercial development. I initially supported an impact fee for commercial development for the simple reason stated in the simple truths I said earlier. That said, an impact fee will discourage development, and I've not been able to determine by the budget, and maybe we can do some research and tell me what that financial impact is. Case in point.
Thank you, Ray. I can't let you keep talking, partner. I can't let you keep talking. It's a 3-minute rule. It's a rule for everybody. Thank you.
I've talked with the Public Works Director, and now I understand that the ever grass on Lillian Park or Teardrop Park with weeds that were grown over. But they put a bunch of grass, new grass out there, and the job hasn't been accepted. And why there hasn't been a water truck watering, that is beyond me, because the stuff that was there before was established, so it had a root base. And the stuff now is, they say it's going to grow once we get rain and all that stuff, but it's pretty sad that the dollar value on that contract, that they didn't water it. If you go through it and go take a look at it, and then when you go on top of it, it's like cobblestones. It's pretty sad. So it'd be worth taking a look at and what our contract said. I don't know. The other thing is, it's been pretty bad the last few couple of weeks, is the outfits that are renting the jet skis and the pontoon boats and what have you. They have been racing up and down the canal behind my place, Ben and Brody's and stuff like that. It seems like we ought to require those people to give them instructions that these canals are off limits for stuff like that. It ought to be part of their spiel that they give these people. I don't know if they do or not, but they need to give them some rules of the road. And if they don't, send somebody there, pretend they're going to rent it or whatever. And if they don't give the spiel to stay out of these areas, jerk their license, because they're not telling the people what they should do. They almost knocked down the piling, nudged the rudder on my sailboat up in the air. It's kind of upsetting. And I couldn't chase them down because I'd have to put the boat in the water and all that stuff. And they're long gone. They're rentals. I'm kind of disappointed.
The first one is from Kathy Nelson, 152 129th Ave West. And it's reference to parking meter rate increase in Johns Pass. I'm the current business owner in Johns Pass, and I'm writing to appeal to your sense of decency. Businesses throughout the nation have had to survive unprecedented levels of stress and financial destruction in 2020, for which we are still trying to get back on our feet. For those businesses in the past, we have weathered the storm and are still standing today. I am asking that you please reconsider doing any kind of further destruction by chasing away tourists from what is already overly inflated parking rates in Johns Pass. I have heard many locals say that they don't come to our area because the price of parking is so astronomical. Soon the tourists will be saying the same thing. Again, I'm appealing to your sense of decency and asking that you vote against the increase in parking meter rates. Thank you, Kathy Nelson, Addicted to the Bean. The next one is from Thomas Bargainer, 9144th Avenue. And this is in reference to building height and Gulf Boulevard crosswalk relocation. Building height was proposed at 5-story and is now 7-story. Also, the garage is now 50 feet of height. This is a misrepresentation in the change from the original proposal at the neighborhood meeting and does not meet the theme and intent, nor does the intended 106-foot height comply with adjacent recent development in Madeira Beach area and is an extreme departure. Garage screening is strongly recommended as a structured garage, and a 106-foot hotel does not fit the theme of the residential area and is not compatible when considered with the context of the surrounding residences. Articulation, landscaping, tiering, and screening are recommended. Following are recent residential building heights from 73 to 87 feet. Bel Art Building A Madeira Beach, 7 stories, 85 feet, built in 2007. Bellart, Madeira Beach, Building B, 7-story, 85 feet, built in 2007. Bellart, Madeira Beach, 7-story, 85 feet, 2007. Cambria Hotel, Madeira Beach, 6 stories, 73 feet, built 2020. Madeira Bay Resort, Madeira Beach, 6 stories, 73 feet, built in 2006. Sorrento Condominiums, Madeira Beach, 6 stories, 73 feet, built in 2005. Secondly, we are strongly opposed to the relocation of the FDOT pedestrian crosswalk across Gulf Boulevard to the north, away from the Madeira Beach parking access at 144th, and access across from the convenience store, the Speedway convenience store. If relocated to north to the hotel parking, this will create an extreme hazard to public beach patrons crossing Gulf Boulevard for ice, refreshments, and food to the convenience store. They will not utilize a relocated crosswalk. That's all I have for now.
Thank you. Next is presentations and proclamations. First is National Safe Boating Week, May 22nd through 28th, 2021, and a presentation by the representative from the Coast Guard Auxiliary.
Let me read the proclamation and then we'll go from there.
I think you have a presentation for us too, correct?
I was just going to give you some.
Okay.
You want to go ahead?
Okay. Hi, I'm Brenda Berger with the United States Coast Guard Auxiliary. And first of all, I'd like to thank the City of Madeira Beach for continuing to support us. I've been doing this for about 17 years here in Madeira Beach, and every year you supported us in our efforts for boat safety, and I really appreciate that. Okay, and just some statistics. First of all, Florida leads the nation in total number of registered vessels, and that would be 985,000 vessels in the state of Florida. Last year, there were reported 224 accidents in Florida, and out of that, 79 fatalities. And last year, FWC issued 74,376 boating safety education cards. And if you don't know what that means you have taken a boat safety course with the U.S. Coast Guard, with Florida Wildlife, or the Power Squadron. And anybody born after January 1st, 1988, it's required by the state. You have to take a boat safety course to operate a vessel on our waters. Last year, among the fatalities and the accidents, there were 69% of those operators involved in those accidents did not have a boat safety course of any type. So as you can see, it's very important for us to get out there and reach out to the public and teach them the boating safety practices on the water, and to make sure their boats are equipped properly with the proper equipment that is not expired. So that's really what the Coast Guard tasked the U.S. Coast Guard Auxiliary. They asked, our main mission is to educate the boating public, along with checking the boats to make sure that everything on that boat is safe and ready to go. So I'd like to thank you for that.
Thank you.
Okay.
Have we resumed our safety classes?
Oh.
We resumed the Madeira Beach Auxiliary?
Good question. Happy. Yes, we're having our first class June 5th, the first Saturday of the month. I think it's like June 5th.
Okay.
And we will probably be getting with you, because you used to publicize it on your station, I believe, and in your newsletter. So we'll have our public affairs person get with you. But yes, we have resumed, but it's going to be June 5th. Okay? Any other questions?
Thank you. And why don't you stay up there, and Bob, if you could read that proclamation.
Sure. This is a proclamation for National Safe Boating Week, May 22nd through May 28th, 2021. For nearly 90 million Americans, boating continues to be a popular recreational activity. From coast to coast and everywhere in between, people are taking to the water and enjoying time together, boating, sailing, paddling, and fishing. During National Safe Boating Week, we want to bring special attention to this pastime and remind recreational boaters of a few tips to ensure that they and their loved ones are safe and responsible while exploring our nation's waterways. Proper planning for a day of boating begins even before leaving the home. Getting a free vessel safety check and taking a safe boating course at the beginning of the boating season, filing a float plan with a trusted family member or friend, and checking the weather before boating are key steps to an enjoyable time boating. Everyone should always wear a U.S. Coast Guard approved life jacket while boating. Drowning remains the #1 cause of death for recreational boaters each year, and most drowning victims in recreational boating accidents are not wearing a life jacket. Safe and responsible boating includes never operating a boat while under the influence of drugs, alcohol, and without knowing the basic navigation rules. National Safe Boating Week is observed to bring attention to important life safety tips for recreational boaters so that they can have a safer and more fun experience out of the water. Whereas an average of 700 people die each year in boating-related accidents in the United States, approximately 3/4 of these are fatalities caused by drowning. The vast majority of these accidents are caused by human error or poor judgment and not by the boat equipment or environmental factors. And whereas a significant number of boaters who lose their lives by drowning would be alive today had they worn a life jacket. And whereas, in an effort to combat these statistics, the National Safe Boating Council, in partnership with the United States Coast Guard and the National Association of State Boating Law Administrators, will launch the annual North American Safe Boating Campaign during National Safe Boating Week. The campaign is designed to reach more than 70 million boaters around North America and communicates this year's life safety message: be smart, be safe, wear it, and now therefore I, John B. Hendricks, Mayor of the City of Madeira Beach, Florida, do hereby support the goals of the National American Safe Boating Campaign and proclaim May 22nd through the 28th, 2021 as National Safe Boating Week and urge all boaters to boat smart, boat safe, and wear it. Proclaim this 26th day of May 2021, signed by Mayor John B. Hendricks.
Thank you. Can I get our picture?
Next, we have a presentation for a check from the proceeds of the 2021 grunt hunt.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor and Commissioners. Tonight we have the pleasure of giving 2 checks out to our 2 supported charities that we had from the grunt hunt we had a few weeks ago. We're going to start with the Police Unity Tour, and we have Deputy Duncan, and I don't remember the other guys.
Hello. Thank you for having us. We are members of the Police Unity Tour, which is an organization comprised of law enforcement officers, active, retired, and also survivors of law enforcement officers killed in the line of duty. Sorry, I get emotional when I talk about this. Each year during the Police Week in May, we embark on a mission to ride our bicycles extended periods of time to converge on Washington, D.C., where we go to the National Law Enforcement Memorial. We do this to commemorate, honor,
and remember the fallen law enforcement officers, as well as help the surviving family members realize that while their loved one is gone, they are definitely not forgotten. As part of our fundraising efforts, we also became one of the major benefactors for the National Law Enforcement Memorial and the museum that's attached to it. When I was informed by my partner here that you guys have chosen our team as a beneficiary for this, this was very, very unexpected and humbling. Of all the organizations that you could have chosen, you chose us. And I think I speak for myself and everybody on our team that I don't think we can fully describe to you the gratitude or significance of your donation and what it means to remember the lives of lost law enforcement officers. Also, I don't think I can explain to you the gratitude that we get from the families of the surviving law enforcement officers killed in the line of duty. Their appreciations for what we do. So I thank you, not only on behalf of our team, but also everybody, every surviving family member. Thank you.
Can we see it?
And the second charity we used this year, chose this year, was our own 9/11 Memorial. So I'll turn it over to the committee.
Choices.
Thank you. I feel like I should say ditto. Can I say ditto to what he said? Because it was a surprise for us. It was humbling to know that remembrance, never forget. And it is, I want to thank Public Works especially, and those, the mayor who supports us, Ms. Daniels, for all that he does for us and for feeling as we. And this is the team. I'm Dee Lay. I live in Madeira Beach 42 years, 724 Sunset Cove. This is Steve Kochek. He was original on the build team. Want to say anything, Steve?
No, go ahead.
And this is Guy Critelli. He's always, you know, Greg, he's everywhere. And he was, and this is neighbor Madeira Beach, Donna Frio. So I've been appointed to I want to thank Brian Rao, the Madeira Beach, for thinking of us and everyone who has participated in the grunt hunt. I didn't, and for the very generous $500, that's the most we've ever collected at one time, I think. So we are inspired by your remembrance of the 9/11 Memorial Site and by our nation's motto, never forget. We get many compliments from out of town, out of country, and local people. And I would like to indulge myself and you, if I can read one of these letters that we've got from this man who lives in Stony Point, New York. To whom it may concern. My name is Malcolm Dean Jr., and I am a paramedic who worked for New York Fire Department and responded to 9/11. My brother, William Thomas Dean, was killed that day.
He was a VP for Marsh and McLennan, and his office was on the 101st floor of the North Tower of the World Trade Center. My wife and I were recently in the Madeira Beach area and stopped at the 9/11 Memorial in the vicinity of the Causeway. I have visited all of the official 9/11 memorials, as well as many smaller ones throughout the United States. Your memorial brought me to tears. It was moving, respectfully done, and in my opinion, captured the sentiments of the families and the event. Thank you. I thank you, Madeira Beach, for providing a spot where family members, responders, and the public can reflect on the events of that day and pay respects to all of the lives lost and help to continue very difficult healing process. As a responder, family member, and survivor of those tragic events, the site is a very powerful and amazing tribute to those lost, while providing solace to those who remain. If there is anything I can do to fill in the blanks, please feel free to call me. Thank you to all involved. Captain Malcolm Dean, Jr., licensed paramedic, Stanford Emergency Medical Services. And that is why we can never forget.
Okay, next on the agenda is revocation of Resolution 2020-09 for use of city right-of-way for restaurants and bar parking. City Manager Daniels.
Yes, this particular resolution we discussed, I believe it was last month, and we had mentioned about waiting a little bit and bringing it to this workshop. So it's basically for your all information, and if there is action that you wanted to take, then give me some direction. I'll have it on the agenda for the next meeting or whatever meeting you'd like to address it at.
Okay, I think it's time for it to come off. I think we're pretty much back to normal. Floor is open for any other discussion amongst the commission.
I agree with you, Mayor. And frankly, restaurants aren't adhering to some of these conditions anyway, so.
Right. And I've noticed one of the restaurants has already disassembled theirs. They're back to normal and have pulled all their tables back inside. So I think it's time the others follow suit. Is there any public comment on this? Mr. Daniels, if you will, carry this on to the regular meeting, and we'll
do.
Thank you. Next is Gulf Beaches Library budget. Vice Mayor Price, would you like to start us up on this one?
Sure. As the library board representative, I've been attending the meetings, and our library director came up with a budget. It's less than last year. Pursuant to my request, he put the capital improvements down to zero, and they will be using their reserves for all capital improvements. This is the budget that you see now is the budget we discussed in at least one meeting, 2 meetings probably, and if you can see, the numbers are pretty much the same as last year. We did give everybody a raise this year. In fact, we voted to make our minimum entry-level wage $10 an hour, so that lifted up quite a few people, and we thought that was the right thing, although I personally voted against it. I agree with it, though. They were saving, just to explain some things that I've learned since being on the board, the library was saving for a new building or a new addition, and they've now learned that that's probably not in the works via us and also via FEMA regulations. So they will be using and working hard to use all their reserves to do some of the items that you see kind of like on the first page, our packet. Let's see, I've got a...
Page 10.
Yeah, page 10, everything on the right-hand side. And, you know, there is one thing I did want to add. I see on the cover letter it says, in the paragraph from the library director, Vince Gadro, the trustees from the 5 municipalities voted to locally contribute a total of $285,361. That includes a 10% discount. For the record, I think we all agreed that we would present this to our commissions. I did not vote to okay this amount. In fact, I fully expected everybody here to have a little input on what they think of the budget, either up or down, or what they think the money should be used for. But I will tell you it is lower than last year. It does include a 10% discount, and none of it is going to the capital improvements, which kind of got under our skin last year. So.
Okay. I did have a couple of questions on it. And that is, are items going out for a bid with the library?
They are. And we have one gentleman, I'm sorry, I don't remember his name off the top, who is retired from the building industry, and he actually, the library was ready to replace the air conditioner, and he got some of the people he knew out there that said, this doesn't need replacing, you just need to update it, this, that, and the other, yeah. And it saved like $70,000. So the people are on the ball there that are active on the board today.
Okay.
As
I was
far
just
as,
looking at,
you know,
yeah, $25,000 for gutters and $175,000 to remodel the bathroom.
I know. Well,
they looked steep, but if they've gone out to bid, and that's what they're getting, and these are low. But I also noticed on page 12, we've got the same things in here that I brought up last year, and that was library books. Are we really spending $45,000 a year on books?
Certainly get that detail. I do not have it. I actually have their audit here. I'm not sure if it'll detail out exactly what was spent on books, but use of subscription, printing, binding, library books. Actually, well, the last audit I have is from February 28th, and at that point, they had spent 40% of the $45,000. They spent $18,026.
That's
on books.
On this year's budget, so.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, the budget that's, so, let's see, got October, November, December, January, February.
2021's budget.
Well, yeah, they're on the October 1 to September 30,
right.
Just like we are. So they're on track to spend it. they're 40% now at 6 months in.
Okay, I just want to be sure if we need to spend that, or if they need to spend it, that's fine, but, the audio books, 5,000, 5,500, and DVDs and music CDs. That's one that really gets me.
See if I can look that up in the audit. I don't know. Well, people still have used DVDs, and the CDs aren't just...
I've looked. I went to check
music.
something out, but I had already seen everything that was in the library, so.
Actually, at the 6 month mark, they're at 37% of the, audiobooks, almost 38% spending on the DVDs and the music.
Anybody really check out music CDs? I'd be curious to know that. But
I can ask.
But DVDs, these are just suggestions. We have nothing to do with it, but.
And I will add that during a Treasure Island Board of Commissioners workshop that took place on May 18th, 2021, one of the library board trustees mentioned that she has reached out to Pinellas County Library Cooperative and will be asking for additional funds. So this isn't in stone. This is what's proposed.
Okay. Good.
You know, we're going to bring it to you, to our commissions, and come back. I'm
just saying,
right.
Some of this stuff, they can actually go to other sources to find these too, depending on what CDs or DVDs they're wanting, because you can go to eBay and find this stuff for like $1 in free shipping. I don't know how they do that, but they do. That's all I've got. Those were the main things I wanted to ask about, just to be sure we're...
I'll come back to you at the next meeting and let you know the rationale for the numbers on those three things, right? The music, the DVDs and CDs, and the amount of books.
Yeah.
Because remember the last time I gave you those statistics, it does seem like more and more people are downloading books and using electronic means. So.
Yeah, and that's... Maybe the focus needs to be more on electronic means, additional computers and computer stations, but that's not for us to decide. Does anyone else have anything? I did want to mention that the interlocal agreement has been voted on and passed by 4 of the 5 cities involved.
Great.
So we're waiting on Treasure Island's response now. So,
Mayor, if I may,
yes.
just add to the discussion. The question came up on the repairs. You know, permits are required. Obviously, it is. You know, it's our building, so any renovations they do to bathrooms and stuff really benefit us if we were to ever have the building back for the use of the city. Obviously, it's in a long-term lease situation right now, and we're not trying to get the building back. But so the question came up about charging for the permit fees, but really we'd be charging ourselves because, you know, each one of the 5 cities contributes to it. So, and since the renovations, you know, are to our building, I think it's a benefit to our patrons that go there that they have a sufficient place to be at. So unless there's any objection from the commission, my plan is obviously to have them get their permits, but we would not be charging them for their permits. And I'll bring that up when we talk about the budget, so we can solidify that and that I've got your approval for that. And then the other thing, obviously, you know, I can put this on the agenda as well, June 9th. We are going to have a busy meeting, but I know it's something the library board usually wants by a certain date, and I'd have to check the contract again and see what that date is. But we also usually, or at least last time, we had Vince come, and, you know, not that you couldn't get the answers, but, you know, you're voting on the proposal, so maybe if there's other questions that come up that night, we can, you know, and I can talk to Vince so he's not, you know, upset or, you know, he's prepared to hopefully have some answers to some of those questions. So I'm just throwing that out there. If you want me to do that, I'd be more than happy to do that.
Yes, sir.
Mayor, Commissioners, since you brought up the interlocal agreement, I think I should read to you an email that I received from the city attorney of Treasure Island today at 1:20. Good afternoon. As you may have heard, the City Commission for the City of Treasure Island held a workshop on 5/18 regarding the library interlocal agreement that was proposed by the mayors. At that time, the majority of the commission expressed their desire to have the interlocal agreement amended before considering it for approval. While I am happy to provide the commission's directed amendment of the interlocal, I did not know whether your client would consider a revised interlocal agreement. I understand that several of your clients adopted the prior version. Can you please let me know if your clients would be willing to consider a revised interlocal agreement or not? Thank you, Jennifer Cowan. So,
Well, what did they want to add?
I believe that there was circulated a list of issues that were, it stems from the folks that were previously on the library board and maybe the executive director, and in looking at the interlocal agreement that came out from the mayor's group, that some of it they felt didn't work, or I think there was one where it made reference to an entity that doesn't exist anymore or whatever. Anyway, there was a list of issues that were provided. I know I'm providing town attorney services for Reddington Beach, and its Vice Mayor Dorgan, put together a list which we passed on to our mayor, and our mayor indicated that he didn't feel, after looking at the list, that it was anything that needed to be amended at the time, and so Reddington Beach went ahead and adopted it last Wednesday, but apparently from this email, that same or a similar list is being referred to, giving Treasure Island folks concern. So I don't know if maybe Mayor Hendricks, you want to speak to Treasure Island's mayor and...
Well, I'd like to fill you all in. I actually have met with Treasure Island's mayor and Treasure Island's city attorney, along with our city attorney, Mr. Trask. We went over their concerns. We addressed most all of them. We made some changes. All of the other cities voted on it and accepted it. And then when they had this workshop last week or 2 weeks ago, whatever the date was on it, Commissioner Toth started bringing up things about the interlocal that they didn't like. But this interlocal is not with the library. This interlocal is with the other cities. And I think there's some confusion on that. And for the library to come back, basically, or their representative of the library to come back to try to change the interlocal at this late date when 4 cities have already voted on it and they had every opportunity to come in and make the changes necessary that they felt were necessary, and we accommodated them on most all of that, and it was agreed to by Treasure Island's mayor and Treasure Island's city attorney. And as far as I'm concerned, it stands as written, because I don't think it's fair to the other 4 cities to go jumping through hoops to redo the interlocal again for one city. That's my feeling on it, and I'm open to input from the rest of the commission.
Well, I watched that workshop, and it seemed to me the primary concern was there were deadlines put in the interlocal agreement on the library about when to present the budget and things of that nature, but there were no deadlines or dates put into it where the cities had to agree by a certain point. And they did not want to wait. You know, if the library has to put in their budget by April 15th or whatever we have in that agreement, they don't want to wait until October, 6 months later to find out if all the cities agree to the amounts. Is there rationale? And I kind of understand that, but...
Then put it in your bylaws.
Yeah. Well, their board believes that Madeira Beach actually rejected putting in the dates for any action by the cities. And I don't know if that happened in the negotiations or not, because so much of this stuff gets out there without any backup or, rumor.
Not that I'm aware of,
Yeah.
but I know there was some discussion between Mr. Trask and their city attorney, but they came to a final agreement, and that's what went to all the cities. And there's no reason that I know of, and correct me if I'm wrong, that they can't just put in their bylaws that they need an answer by such and such a date.
They can certainly put in their bylaws that they need an answer, but they certainly can't compel any of the member governments to act. I mean, that's solely within each of the sovereign governing boards to decide when it will make a decision on what funding to provide the library. How I, addressed it with the Reddington Beach Commission last Wednesday, because Vice Mayor Dorgan still had concerns or whatnot, is, look, I think at this point, we know what this upcoming budget's going to be. Go ahead and adopt the interlocal as the months go on. If we discover that an amendment needs to happen and go, cycle through all of the 5 members, we could deal with that, cross that bridge when we get to it. But by not voting to approve it now, you're calling into question whether you're going to participate at all in funding the library. And I think that sort of point convinced the majority of the Reddington Beach Commission. They approved it 4-1.
Well, we can always come back and address issues, but the interlocal as written right now stands. We need to move it. We need to go ahead and finish this up rather than inconvenience 4 cities. That's just the way I feel about it. I mean, I know when the library director paid us a visit last year, we were told it was it's our way or the highway, and they were going to kick us out of the library. So most certainly, this is something that we need to go ahead and do so that we've got the city's best interests being looked out for. And I've spoken with other mayors, and they're all saying, let's not amend this thing again right now. Let's get it in effect first. Then we can go back and readdress some individual issues. If somebody's got wanting to do a little tweaking here or there on it, we can address it.
Well, there was one concern. New mayor of Treasure Island stated during the workshop that was the old mayor who made those agreements. I didn't make that agreement. They fully intend to not vote for it, for the interlocal, is my impression. And not only that, they believe that part of the interlocal agreement called recommendations in Section 3, where it's recommended that things happen on certain dates, and then he goes, those are, he believes, or that board believes, or at least the mayor, I think, believes that that's not even binding on Treasure Island. So I think we got our work cut out for us. Maybe I don't know. Are we going to have I don't know what's going to happen. If they decide not to join in on the interlocal, then they're, the number one contributor. We may not be having a library.
Well,
is my fear.
That's up to Treasure Island.
Yeah.
All these cities have jumped through hoops, and we can't, when everyone else has agreed, we can't just keep handling them with kid gloves and bending over backwards, which we did, and to say, well, I wasn't the mayor when this happened is just, that may have initially been true, but we had a meeting with the new mayor and with their city attorney and went through these things. So I watched that meeting, and there was no rebuttal of anything that was said at that meeting by their commissioner, who is also on the library board. Zero rebuttal. And in the meantime, 4 cities have passed it, and I don't think it's fair to 4 cities to go back and have to redo the whole thing again.
I don't know if we could even pass their budget without knowing what our contribution is going to be.
Well,
I mean, because if we have to absorb Treasure Island's portion of it,
I think that you would adopt that contribution that you feel is appropriate for the city of Madeira Beach to give. If one of the other member governments drops out, and this could happen now or it could happen a year from now because the interlocal allows any of the member governments to leave if they so desire, it's really on the library as an independent entity to redo their budget. I mean, it's the same thing with this organization. If you all suddenly lose a major stream of income, you have to figure out how to make ends meet, you know, to get a balanced budget. And so too with the library, if it turns out the Treasure Island simply does not want to participate, their revenue would fall off, and certainly the library could come back to each of the remaining 4 member governments and say, please give us more, and that would be up to the member government, respective governing boards. But you can still vote to approve what you're doing now, because, and I don't speak for them, but I mean, I would think that they would want some certainty that at least you approve a number that right now you're going to give, and then cross the bridge of if there's going to be a shortfall because of Treasure Island, if and when that happens. That'd be my recommendation. And
we're not dragging this out till October. I mean, we're discussing it now in May.
Right.
So,
right.
I don't know what the fear is on the side of the library.
Well, as one of their commissioners said during their meeting, if we don't vote on it, we have the power. This is not meant to be a power struggle between cities. It's an interlocal agreement. We're working together for the betterment of the library and to have something to where we've got a little say-so in what's going on because we're footing the bill. And it's nothing more than that. And it has nothing to do with who's in power. We're equally in power on that. I have heard something about because Treasure Island gives the most contribution, they should have 2 votes instead of 1 vote. Well, no. It doesn't work that way. It doesn't work with state senators. You know, each state's got 2 senators. That's it. Doesn't matter how big they are.
Well, I'd appreciate it if everybody look at it and decide if there's anything that you think other than what there is another meeting coming up next week or 2, and I will get your questions answered. Maybe we do have Vince show up to. I mean, he was at their meeting backing up them.
Backing up the commissioner that was going against this is exactly what he was doing.
Yeah.
So disappointing.
Yeah.
He probably shouldn't have tried to be involved in the interlocal agreement. So, no, I'm fine with the budget. I appreciate the reduction. I just want to be sure they're being good stewards of their money and getting bids. And if they're doing that, that's great.
You know, at the very beginning, when Victor came in with that letter, and he read the letter to us several months ago, it was not broken down like this here. This identifies everything and what everyone is paying, and that's what's making a big difference. Before, it was just a letter, and this is what he was looking for, and that was the end of the story, basically. So I think this is a very good layout that they have here. I am concerned about the very last item.
Contingency.
Yeah.
Okay.
Exactly what that is for $3,000. I was just a little concerned over that.
Okay. Think out for you.
Thank you.
Okay,
and maybe have directly, we still have a heads up.
I'll invite Vince, and I'll have it on the agenda for the June 9th meeting.
Anyone else have anything? there any public comment on this?
Steve Kochick, 15301 2nd Street, East Madeira Beach. This isn't new. This has been going on for years and years and years. I was at Treasure Island meetings when I was on the board also. We'd be arguing, and they couldn't understand it when the argument there has to do with how much they pay. It goes by population. The library comes in and shows how much the people of Treasure Island use the library. They have the bookmobile that goes to Treasure Island. They've made a lot of adjustments to try to placate Treasure Island. But there's a core in Treasure Island that just hates the library, does not want the library, and would rather spend that money elsewhere. You know? And once again, it comes down to, as a society, what are we as a society? You know, is it always come down to the God almighty dollar? You know, we're budgeting, we're scraping, we're going. But the library has so many programs and helps so many people. We've seen it through so many times. When things were bad, people were in there filling out resumes. The people were helping get jobs. The kids are learning how to read. These are the things that make a society of what we are. You know? And if we have to fight, then we fight. You know, if we have to go to meetings at Treasure Island, then we'll show up at meetings in Treasure Island and try to convince them this is for your society. This isn't about the couple of bucks that you're spending on the library. This is about we as a people and we as a community. We have to fight for that sometimes. The more we lose, the less we become a community. And what do we become? We become nothing then. Thank you.
Thank you.
So can we put on the consent agenda that we will absorb the building permits? That would make them very happy. Do we have a consensus on that? Okay.
That's fine with me.
Okay, that'll be a good thing for me to say in the meeting. Okay, thank you.
Yeah, like you say, we're getting the building back in 47 years, so why?
I hope not.
I won't be here. They'll be throwing a party down there about that. Okay, next is Marina revenues and expenses. Mr. Laughlin, what have you got for us?
Sure, thank you. So, as we approach budget season, I wanted to get your pulse on budgeting in a different manner for the Marina, as well as presenting financial information, both for budgetary purposes as well as for year-end audited financial statements specifically to the Marina. And what provoked this is the fact that there's a significant amount of the Marina's operating budget is based on what I call cost of goods sold, so the fuel purchases as well as store purchases. And so out of looking at FY 2020 numbers, you've got the entire Marina operating expense budget of $1.8 million. Let's say 300,000 or so of that is personnel, and then the remaining operating is 1.5, so 1.8 total. Well, of that 1.8, almost 1.3 million was per fuel purchases and store purchases. And so the fact that we're budgeting for this as part of the operating budget of the Marina, I feel that this is a gross distortion of the true operating expenses of the Marina and significantly dilutes the overall operating budget, because the level of budgetary authority at each department is at the gross expense level. So let's say the Marina next year for FY22 budgets 1.7 in fuel purchases and store purchases. We all know there's factors out of our control, rising and falling fuel prices, for example, that can cause a significant difference between actual and budget. So let's say we budget 1.8, but we really only spend 1.2. Well, now the Marina department might feel that they have $600,000 to play with for other personnel and operating adjustments. So what this does, my proposal is to move that to into revenues to arrive at net operating revenues for fuel and for store sales, and leave that up in revenues, and we will budget at one net operating revenue number for each. And this will, in essence, promote much greater transparency and accountability within the Marina Department for their operating budget by moving those items into net revenues, because essentially that's all that happens, right? We purchase the fuel, we mark it up, we sell it. We purchase items at the ship store, we mark it up, we sell it. So that's my contention, and that's how I'd want to address this for the FY22 budget with you all. I think it'll be, like I said, enhance transparency and accountability for the marine operation.
Yeah, I think this past year, thank you, Doug, because I think you saved us on the budget. We would have had a millage rate increase had we gone by the figures we had. So, sounds like a good plan to me.
You talked to Mr. Rao about this? Oh, nodding yes. Okay.
Yep.
Does it make sense to you? You're the one running the.
As Commissioner, it allows me to focus on what I can control. So my personnel costs, anything from uniforms to the electric bill to things like that. I can't control how much gas costs. I can't control how much beer costs. I can mark it up and resell it. But my actual costs, so how much do I spend doing things, that I can control. And so this separates that, and it allows me to then really keep a good handle on my budget to keep me, where I need to be.
Good.
Mr. Mayor, may I? Okay. Go ahead. Andrew, I'm not going to make fun of Notre Dame anymore because this is brilliant, okay? And
go ahead.
You did learn something there, it appears, because, thank you, Mr. Mayor, for what you said earlier, but, this is part of what I've been saying all along about this. You'll look at the Marina numbers, and you can even look real quick on page 14 of our book, and if you see in fiscal year 19, just go down to the fourth and fifth line items. Basically, what it's saying is we purchased $1.427 million worth of fuel, and we sold it for $1.425. Well, that doesn't make any sense, right? So what this is doing, and if I understand Andrew correctly, and I think I do, is we gave everybody the ability to take any numbers that came out of the Marina and create their own narrative for it, right? So if you wanted something to look bad one year and better the next year, well, you could basically defer, if you had something, defer a gasoline payment until October, and then it would go on the next budget. And we saw that. We saw that a couple of years back when there was a $600,000 encumbrance, and everybody's high-fiving each other because the Marina made $200,000. No, technically, if you'd paid for that gas, they would have lost $400,000. But they're 100% right. The cost of goods sold shouldn't even be a part of this equation. The only thing I want to point out, three quick things to you guys. On page 13 in the memorandum, which again is brilliant. It's actually written really well, Andrew. Thank you. In the background, the last sentence, by including purchases of fuel and items held for resale to store as cost of operation, this distorts the true operating expenses of the Marina and significantly dilutes the overall operating budget of the Marina Department. Guys, the words distorts and significantly dilutes should never be in any financial documents that we're looking at, right? It just doesn't, these are dollars and cents. These are supposed to make sense. They're supposed to be hard numbers. That doesn't make sense. The second one, and the mayor just addressed this, in the fiscal impact, the last sentence there, however, the level of budgetary control of the Marina Department will be tightened. It's a great idea, okay? And John's right, we almost raised the millage rate because of it. And the last one, look at the last sentence of the recommendation. This change will not only provide a more sensible presentation of financial information, but will also provide greater transparency and enhanced financial accountability associated with the Marina's operating budget. Okay, guys, we have now got our motto for the budget, okay? Sensible, transparent, and financial accountability. That's it. I mean, that's what we're supposed to be looking for going into this anyway. So, all I think we could ever ask for up here, ever, is an apples-to-apples comparison of, hey, and we won't pick on the Marina, but you say the Marina, is it doing better than it was doing? Is it doing as good as it should doing? And how does it compare to the past years? That's how we judge, and that's how we're able to actually create a budget and go forward. So kudos, guys. You did a great job on this, and I look forward to seeing some more reports like this. So thank you.
I'm sensing I have consensus.
I was going to say consent agenda item, okay.
Yes,
Nail it down.
I think, yes.
Okay.
Yes, you do.
Yeah.
I do want to mention something about the Marina, and I'll be brief, and I'm not going to beat it to death, but we discussed fuel pumps for the Marina, and we were talking about pay at the pump, and we got an affirmative on that from Marina manager. I was buying fuel down there using the new pumps, and they are not pay at the pump. And I was told by the Marina manager, well, I was told that that's not the best use for pay at the pump. And I have to say, I understand that if that's the case, but don't lead the commission to believe that's what's going in if it is not what's going in. Be upfront and transparent with us and say, hey, I've researched it. Those aren't the best pumps to put in out there because of discounts we give, which, by the way, you can give discounts on a pay at the pump. People have these cards all over where you can stick it in there and get a discount on your purchase. So all we would have to do is give that to the residents. But don't imply that we're getting something when we're not. I was really upset about that, to find something going in there that we were told was not going in there. We were told something completely different was, and that doesn't get it. It's not acceptable. Okay, next is, okay, sorry about that. Public comment? Thank you, Doug. Any public comment on this? Next is plethora. Did I pronounce?
Plethora.
Plethora.
Did I say that? Is that right?
I don't know.
Using the big lawyerly words.
Okay,
Yeah,
Couldn't we find a word that I could understand on there, Claire?
There's that Notre Dame education when you need it, huh?
Yeah.
Okay.
Be nice.
Just go with Pat.
Of dogs on the beach. With that, I'm giving it to Mayor Price, Vice Mayor Price. You got a promotion.
Well, I got an email from a neighbor who got a promotion. And it could have been written by me, frankly, and I just want to read it and gauge everything. I don't know whether I'm opening up a can of worms here. I'm not a dog hater. I just don't think they belong on our public beach. And this particular neighbor put it very well, so I'd like to read most of his email. I believe that we have a serious problem with the number of people who are bringing their dogs on the beach. I know that in the larger scheme of things, dogs on the beach is not a crisis situation, but having lived here for 25 years, it has been my experience that more and more people are bringing dogs to the beach as if it were a dog beach. Especially between 6 p.m. and sunset, there are people with dogs on and off leashes on a pretty regular basis at 133rd Avenue Public Access. And that's the one I typically use, and I can tell you there are lots of dogs out there. And I'm more of them are off leash than on leash today, at this time. To be clear, I'm a dog lover. I have 2 dogs, but it is my understanding that dogs are prohibited on the beach for sanitary and safety reasons, and also for bird nesting and turtle nesting reasons, so ecology reasons as well. This rule is clearly marked with signage at every public access. Naturally, I'm not including service dogs. To that, I would add service dogs that are properly identified as service dogs. And he's just asking, what can we do about it? And this is the age-old problem of enforcement. Maybe this budget, we should get another compliance person working. I mean, I don't know what else to do. I mean, there's a lot of things slipping through the cracks. And I do think this is an important one. I've had dogs run up to me. I've seen dogs jumping on other people's blankets and things, and I'm terrified to go up and say, hey, you're not supposed to have dogs on the beach, because I don't know what the reaction is going to be. So I'd rather somebody else do it.
Yeah.
Rather a cop do it.
Well, I think it gets back to the same thing that I've been saying for a number of meetings now. There's no sense in having ordinances if we don't have enforcement. And we got them on the books, and we've got to be talking with the sheriff's department on enforcing that one in particular, but all of our ordinances.
Yeah.
We've got it on, we got a litter ordinance last September. There hasn't been one citation written, not one.
Maybe we think about increasing our
So short of
manpower.
getting Vice Mayor Price a badge and a big net to go out there and get the dogs.
Mayor, if I may, I did speak with both of our deputies, and they did alter their schedule, and they plan periodically to be altering it so they could be here later in the evening. In all honesty, they were hoping that the word would get out, between the residents. The tourists, that's generally mostly a daytime thing when they're out there, and, usually they said when they warn them, and they realize it, because the hotels are telling everybody, yeah, come on down and come stay, or the Airbnbs and stuff, but they're not telling them about our laws. And so they have given out warnings on the dogs. There is one gentleman that complains, and they did speak with him because there is a dog that's being trained. There's a gentleman that lives here in the city that trains service dogs. And when they're in training, they are allowed to go to the beach. There's certain criteria, and of course the deputies know who this guy is now and stuff, and and he's more than willing to explain what he's doing there with the dog. But the majority of the time, the people that are there are not authorized to be there. But they will be out, and in fact, in my manager's report for this month, I'm letting all the residents know that we are enforcing dogs on the beach, even at sunset. And I know they like to be out there, and I'm a dog lover too, but our beach is not the place for the dogs to be.
$500 fine, folks.
Yeah, and that's why we've got 2 dog parks.
It seems that it's been about 2 months, I believe, that I got that email. Remember, I forwarded it and everything, and you responded to that, and I do believe Megan responded to it also.
Yes.
And also the sheriff's department responded. And the man contacted me again to let me know, and he was very appreciative of it. I don't know if he ever got his security that he wanted of not having the dogs on the beach or not, but he did respond, and there was people asking. And the sheriff's department did say that a lot of these people that come in with their dogs don't even live here.
Right.
They live someplace else, and they bring their dogs here.
Well,
They
because
could
we have
be
dog-friendly hotel,
There's only one.
condos on the beach, don't we?
There's only one beach for the dogs,
Oh.
and that's on the other
Right.
side of the bridge.
Right.
That's the park over there, and that was it. But anyway, this man was very informative, and he really appreciated it. And again, like I said, the sheriff's department did respond with their remarks about giving out the notices that no dogs were allowed, and dogs were not allowed after that. So hopefully that was the beginning of something. I don't know who you got your email from, but it sounds something like the man that I heard from too. But he was very, very appreciative. He really was.
Well, I know they took one day last week, I think it was last week, they went out in the afternoon specifically looking for dogs on the beach to do some corrective action. I don't know how that wound up, but I know they're going out there actively looking for them now.
Maybe we should make a nice, I don't want to say plaque, but
There is a
notice
plaque.
that the hotels can, and the condos can put in their rental units that explain or leave no trace, because there's a lot of holes never filled in that if you walk early in the morning, you twist your ankle in them. Or leave no trace, anti-littering, and no dogs on the beach unless they're properly marked as such and on a leash.
Well, the big sign that we have out at the beaches saying.
Well, if they're coming out of the condos, they don't see the signs.
Well, that's true too, they don't.
Yeah.
But it is posted, and people
Yeah.
should be aware of the fact that the dogs are not allowed on the beach.
Well, I know our signs that are down at the South Beach there at John's Pass. The signs, there are two big new signs. They're both where you can't see them, though. I mean, everybody has to pay for parking. I don't know why we don't maybe put them at the parking machines, because they're not close to where people would see them. The print's relatively small, are walking right on by them, so.
Yeah.
That's all I've got on it.
Thank you for listening.
Thank you. Any public comment? Yes, sir, Mr. Preston.
Robert Preston, 425 South Bayshore Drive. I'm a dog owner. You know, I walk my dogs. I walk them at night. I carry a flashlight so that I pick up messes and what have you. We have a lot of residents that don't do that. And, you know, we always talk about warnings and warnings and warnings. You know, it's a $500 fine. That's one. Up to. But maybe it ought to be progressive. The very first time, it's $100, period. Again, then we go on up further. And this service dog thing has really always bugged me. I can go on Amazon and get a service dog vest for my dogs. And I talked with the deputies. If the people say it's a service dog, they don't go any further. They don't have to show proof that they're a service dog. I think that is absolutely wrong. If you have a service dog and it's on the beach because it's a service dog for you, then you have to show proof. And that's something that comes from the state, not the city, not the county, or anything like that. So if you don't have proof in your hand, get the dog off the beach. That's simple. And like I say, the sheriffs have told me, if they say it's a service dog, they walk away and turn the other direction. I think that's wrong. Thank you.
We should at least go to Amazon and buy the vest.
Well,
I mean, that. I mean, our police officers shouldn't just take people's words for it, because people equate, like, service dogs with their emotional support dogs.
Yes,
right?
they
Those
do.
are two different, completely
Totally
different. One's trained, one isn't, you know.
Mr. Daniels is the gentleman that's training the service dogs. Does he have vests on those dogs?
Yes, and it's only usually one dog at a time, you know, because it's a solo thing. And the dogs that aren't certified service dogs, you can tell, you know, because they're not listening. You know, we've seen that before. And I know, you know, I'm not refuting obviously what Bob said, because I don't know what the deputy said, but I know when I've spoken to them, they talked about looking for the other signs that, you know, that dog's a trained professional service dog. And, you know, they have taken action when somebody doesn't have that.
That's enough.
Yes, I'm done.
And well, it even says here we can impound your dog or cat. Can you see the hoopla if we try to take away somebody's dog or cat? Just saying, folks out there.
Well, as to...
Good evening. Thank you. Guy Critelli, 13025 Pelican Lane. I'm sorry, go ahead.
Okay,
Yeah,
just real quick.
As to impoundment, in preparation for the workshop,
Yeah.
I read through your code. That part is likely unconstitutional, and there's a few other things that are now preempted, because this code dates to like 1985, I think, or something. So let's stick with what $500 fines we know are allowed. When we talk about taking people's property, we'll need to have another conversation.
Now, is it the dog's rights or the owner?
Property rights.
Guy Critelli, 13025 Pelican Lane. Also about the dog, they go on the boardwalk. And bicycle on the boardwalk. And fishing people on the boardwalk. We need a sheriff, at least to make the run from the beach to the boardwalk. I've been 42 years on the boardwalk. And people carry the bicycle on the steps to ride at the boardwalk. It's wrong. I've been telling them, they don't want to listen. And the fishing, during the day, where the people got to worry about the line and get hooked and everything else. It's got to stop a little bit. I think if they have a patrol between the beach and the boardwalk, it's for the safety of the people that walk and not for me. I walk there with my wife at night, I go home and forget about it, but the rest of the people, they walk back and forth. At night, it's packed. John's Pass is packed. I mean, so many people there. And you have a bicycle and fishing people on the top of the boardwalk, it's wrong. And dogs, lots of dogs. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Okay. Next is city manager's contract renewal. Commissioner Andrews.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Look, I get this is an uncomfortable subject, but and I really kind of expected this to come up to us before now, but we are where we are, and we're 3 months until this contract's up, and I think it's something that we obviously needed to discuss at some point. Everybody pretty much knows where I stand on this. I've been very transparent all along, but I'm not going to sit up here and rehash any of the disagreements or problems that I've had with the management style that's been occurring. That's not going to happen tonight. I was subject to a pretty public flogging in this very chamber one time by a compromised commission and an insecure fire chief, and I would never do that to another person. So my point's very simple. Okay, I just feel it's time for a change right now. This commission should be very, very proud of itself. We have made some enormous upgrades in finance and legal that have really helped push us along. Bob, I think, has done a great job in lowering the temperature in this room. Some of it is based on what the voters did, but I think we're a much sounder council now, and I think we make better decisions. We at least talk through decisions. I'm not sure we don't all agree every time, but at least we talk through decisions, and we've kept calmer heads, and I think that that's very important. But my suggestion is this: I don't want anybody to leave on bad terms, or I don't want anybody to go out with any humiliation at all. But I think what we do is we honor the rest of the contract. I say that we make an announcement, and obviously this will be something that we would vote on. We'd make an announcement that Bob's last day is the last day of his contract, and we begin. And I think we start with a local search, because I think you guys have all heard me time and time again. Local knowledge of this area is very important. We're very unique in some of the stuff that we do. And I think that having somebody that's been here, understands the system, understands the people here, the quirkiness of our residents and the likes is very important to having good leadership and bringing back some solid morale to the city. Remember, elections have consequences. When we didn't do what the old commission did and just started off with their heads in 2017 when that all happened, and we lost some really good people, and we lost a lot of continuity. Only way to bring that back is to get good leadership back and keep going. So that's my point on it. I would like to see us look towards a change, but again, it's not a comfortable conversation now, but I'm not going to go into any specifics. Thanks.
Yeah, I don't think anybody needs to go into specifics, other than I will say I have worked very well with Bob in the past year that I've been in office. So I think the best thing to do is that each commissioner has their own feelings about this, and if it goes to the regular commission meeting, we have a vote on it. We know how we feel. It's up to each individual commissioner as to where this will go. That's my feeling on it.
Well, if we do, it's got to be the next meeting.
Yes.
I'll place it on the agenda then.
Thanks. Mayor, one thing, again, just reading I had not read Mr. Daniels' contract before, but unfortunately, your prior city attorney before we took over didn't know employment law, and so there's one thing in there that's actually not legal under Florida law. So certainly, whether you keep your manager or advertise anew, that's totally a business decision. But just because I won't be here, I'll brief Mr. Trask, but your vote wouldn't be just to renew what's written. My recommendation is to redo it. So.
Okay, thank you. Any public comment on this?
Chief Kochick, 15301 2nd Street, East Madera Beach. Are we getting rid of the city manager and getting another one? Or do we know that?
We don't know that. It hadn't been voted on, Steve. That's all this is to take it to the regular meeting.
Just to, whether or not to renew the contract or not?
Right.
See a lot of support up there. I don't know what's going on here.
Okay, so if we vote to renew the contract, we also make changes in the contract at that same time?
If we deem necessary to make changes, yes. So that would be in effect starting in September, I believe. Is that right? Yeah.
Sorry, September 1st.
Probably, if a majority of the commission wants to retain Mr. Daniels, then the motion would be to authorize, usually it's the mayor, to negotiate terms of a new contract, and then Mr. Trask and I will help with the legalities of it and so forth. But, you know, if there's a raise, if there's a reduction, or whatever, all those kind of things are. But that can be done just by the one commissioner who gets delegated, and then that contract comes back to the full board before the current one expires, and you'd approve that, so there's a seamless continuity.
Okay. All right. Thank you. Is there any other public comment? Okay. Next is procedure for interviewing director positions. Commissioner Daniels, you're up again.
Andrews.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Look, I brought this up because, you know, I know we're not supposed to be involved in any of the administrative functions here, but we're certainly allowed to voice our opinions and you know, not give directives, but give advice on how things are going. You know, I know that I don't know if this is the first time with this one, but we haven't had a great track record in getting directors. And I think that a lot of it may have to do with what we're doing in this. I asked this, I don't know if you guys got this item 5F. I asked it actually be a part of the agenda, but they put a separate sheet out here. So the way I understood the process, and I'll walk through it if anybody, if it's wrong, please stop me when we go forward. But I think it's listed out here pretty much of what I thought. Each candidate, you know, and like I said, what's the goal? The goal is to find the best possible candidate for that position, right? 10 identical questions asked in a group setting, and, you know, after that, they eliminate people. So we're basically a 20-minute interview on questions that don't really talk about much. I mean, there's not one question in here on stormwater. There's not one question in here on sanitation. But we're asking people that worked here or worked here before. No problem. People that have worked here before or currently work here, you know, we're asking questions like, what did you find out about researching the city of Madera Beach? You know, 5 jobs. I mean, this is, I think if you're looking for a director, it's got to be a much more personal interview. This is the city manager's legacy that's on the line with this. Then the next part of the interview process was to write an essay and then send in the essay, okay? The next part was they sat alone in City Hall and answered a series of questions on a computer without any human interaction, okay? The initial interviews were handled, from what I understand, there were 4 people in the room, the city manager, our HR person, Linda Portal, and Jay. First off, I don't know if any of those people have public works background, but secondly, Linda Portal's the busiest person on the planet. I don't know why we would take 2 days out of her time in order to sit down when I don't know really what her background on public works is. I would like these, we eliminated people based on getting through this first set of questions, which, to me, and then they get to write an essay, and somebody could write the essay for them, and I guess it just bothers me that we're not. This should be a very personal decision for the chief executive officer of the city. This is hiring one of their top guns, and I look at this and I say, your decision's based on a face-to-face or a Zoom meeting that lasted 20 minutes, and then we're asking them to write articulately, to answer the questions. I don't see this as the best possible way to find the right candidate. And I think, like I said, I think the results have bore that out from the candidates that have been hired. So that's just my personal opinion. I just wanted to bring it out there because, Jamie left in February. It's going to be June next week. And I don't think it takes 3+ months to hire a public works director. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else?
Well, as I understand it, there were a lot of applicants. So presumably we have resumes on everyone and know their public works background from that. Doesn't give me too much heartburn to ask these kind of questions about their management style and things like that. But yeah, we'll see how it shakes out, I guess.
Commissioner
I
Andrews?
think we're closing in on it, aren't we, on a
I'm sorry.
fire? No, go ahead.
Okay. I was just curious about something. Are you indicating here that we should be doing the work to do the...
No, not at all. I don't know, before I became the Slurpee King of Madeira Beach, I actually had a real job, and I probably hired and fired 1,000 people in my lifetime. And I would never hire somebody based on a 20-minute interview when you're asking them standard boilerplate questions that are common to any, you can go on the internet and find these questions. We just talked about it with the city manager position. I want somebody with local knowledge. One of the questions should be in here, hey, the stormwater pipe on 131st Street is failing, and the seawall is going to fall into the water. What are you going to do about it? Local knowledge, people that are available for it. How are you going to deal with, you're going to manage people that are executives and you're going to manage people that are garbage men? How do you go about building a team like that? Writing samples and things like that. Look, they're great, but the public works director isn't really while they're a customer-facing person, they're a person-to-person facing person. They shouldn't be writing letters. Every other letter should come out of the city manager's office. Any communication from the city should come out of one source. So, I don't know, just my personal opinion. I like public works directors to have knowledge in public works, not be able to answer standard boilerplate questions, that's all. But to answer your question, no, I don't think we should have any part of the process. No, just the people that we hire, those are the only people we should be interviewing.
Anyone else?
Yeah.
Did you have anything?
Yes.
Okay.
Just in reference to the process, all these questions and the process was vetted by our Human Resources Director. I did submit certain questions that I thought were pertinent, and we did look at management style and things that the manager should do to engage their staff, which I feel is important, whether it's sanitation, stormwater, or parks. We need to be engaging our staff. And we wanted to, so every one of these questions really, whereas on face value, might not seem that it fits, but we did get some good dialogue and some good answers, and got a feel for the experience level as well as the resume, as the Vice Mayor had mentioned. You know, we had all that information sitting here in front of us when we went through it, but it was an independent process and was scored. If somebody had a bias towards or against a candidate, you know, everything was done independently and the fairest process that we could. As to the writing assignments, our department heads do write memos to the commission. We do a lot of writing, and so that's why it's important if you're going to have somebody at a director level, they have to be able to put two words together and follow a format and follow instructions.
Yeah, I'm going to disagree with you on that. And yes, to be able to write a memo to the commission is one thing, but writing an essay is not. You know, like I said, I want somebody that's hands-on that can do the job. We've already gone down this road. I didn't see. You know, I know that the Vice Mayor and Commissioner Hudson asked for some engineering background. I didn't see questions based on that. All you're saying, Bob, is that 20 minutes in front of a person is enough for you to make a decision with three other people that don't have public works experience. Because unless the HR person does, do they have any public works experience?
Yes, there's different parts of public work. So the candidates that we interviewed.
I asked you a specific question.
I'm sorry.
Does the HR director have public works experience?
No, sir.
What's that?
No.
Okay. And Jay doesn't, and Linda doesn't. So why were they involved? Why would we take Linda Portal, who is the busiest person in this city, who's backed up, didn't take it out of the assignment for 2 weeks or 2 days in order to go through all these candidates? I just don't understand. You know, it's not a good use of our time. That's all. I mean, sit down with the people, get to know them. They're going to be your staff. And 20 minutes face to face. Boy, I'll tell you what. You must be a great judge of character because I wouldn't be able to do that.
Well, you have to vet them to begin with. You've got a stack like this. You've got to go through and pull out the ones, you know.
Completely correct, but there should be some
hiring somebody on
questions.
a 20-minute conversation.
I completely agree with you, but I would think that there would be some excuse me, Happy. There would be some questions in here that would pertain and ask them about the things on their resume. I mean, I don't really care what they found out by research in Madeira Beach. I want to know how they're going to fix certain problems in this city. Okay, we've gone down this road already. Okay, and why I like Jamie, that was not a successful project, and Jamie probably wrote really, really good memos. He did. Okay. The citizens deserve more. We've got crumbling roads. We got a road project that came in $4 million over budget. Okay. How do we explain that to her? You know, and somebody said, "Oh, well, it's going to come in $1 million under." Okay, so now it only came in $3 million over budget. Okay, we need people that we can get. You know, we're going to talk about it here in a minute when we look at the next topic. But the money that we spent in engineering, and we had an engineer on staff. I mean, I want a public works person that understands public works, and I think the question should have been geared towards that, not these fluffy, generalized questions that you can find on the internet. That's my only point, but thank you.
Anyone else? Any public comment on this?
Chief Kochick, 15301 2nd Street East. Madeira Beach has a terrible track record in the recent years. We're like who wants to come and work here with this maniac crew that we've had in the last number of years here? We've become so toxic to the employment field that people who are good that we just drove away and embarrassed and everything else that we did to them. We have to, at this point in time, realize that it's going to be a while before professional people want to take a chance on us. The good ones say, Madeira Beach? Yeah, right. Till the next election, and then you're gone. You know? Unfortunately, those years were very costly because there was a time when people wanted to work here. They loved working here. Now, we have paid the price for it. And it's going to be difficult. Plus, we're a small city. We can't really pay big money, maybe. So maybe we're going to get those younger people coming out of school and all that want to start their career, and then are going to be moved on. We may be trading people for St. Petersburg, for Clearwater, for things like that. They will move on after a couple of years, and that's fine. That's fine. That's something that you got to realize, you know. But, you know, it's something to look at, that we have to make amends to the professional world out there. We have to prove to them that we're stable, that we're responsible, and that we want good people, and they will be appreciated by the community. And we still have a lot of people in this community, you can't trust that. If they get back in power, goodbye Madeira Beach again. And we all know, it's been going on for years, so let's not think it can't happen again. Just to, you know, be a little responsible, a little patient. And it's going to be difficult for the city manager because he's the person who has to deal with it. So a little trust has to go into him. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Next is the city's current engineering firm being used. And I put that on the workshop because, frankly, I'm not happy with how the city's being treated right now by Duell and Associates. Bottom line is, and you all have it in your packet, a ton of invoices here.
Mm-hmm.
Engineering alone, basically on 2020, to Duell and Associates was $572,537. This year to date, $113,105. And in going through these bills, many of them on Crystal Isle, and I speak for Normandy Road that Duell and Associates did the engineering on, and about every 100 feet they were having to re-engineer for one reason or another. And when I was going through these bills, I found some amazing things. And that was, although we were paying $200,000 to have them as the consultants on the project on Crystal Isle, if an email was answered, we were billed. If a phone call was made to the representative, we were getting a bill, anywhere from $125 to $250. If you go through this stuff in detail, you will find those same things throughout it. And I consulted with a friend who is an engineer, and I showed him this. He said there's a lot of conflict of interest going on where design work is being done and then they're overseeing the project and the city's being charged a ton for, frankly, and really we probably need to look at this at a later date, but the city can hire an engineer for $100,000 a year and have their own in-house engineer, not be getting a $500,000 a bill a year. And on big projects, we contract it out. But at any rate, whether we do it that way or whether we contract it out, I think it's time to look at putting this out on RFP again. This contract isn't up until, I think, another year, but there is a 30-day out clause on it. I look through here. One of their expertise is seawall repairs and reconstruction, marina facilities. They have all these expertise, but I don't really see us. We were going to get a seawall study, but our own engineering firm wasn't going to be used to do that. Cardinal was going to be used. So if y'all really need to go to sleep one night and you can't sleep, read through all these bills and you'll see what I'm talking about. And you may have glanced through them, but when I see on here miscellaneous time for catching up on emails and stuff, I see sending an email to somebody, $125, talking on the phone to somebody, $250. It's just not right. I don't think. I'm one of five, but I think we at least need to go and address this issue, because I think the city's, in my opinion, I don't think we're getting value for what we're paying. Maybe I'm wrong.
Well, maybe in our budget this year, we hire somebody. If you look at page 149 of 340, we got $700 charged to general office duties, comma, return calls, comma, reply to emails, and sort invoices. Apparently, we had an engineer sorting invoices, and we're paying him his hourly rate. We had one of our very own citizens who volunteered to help out with the Crystal Island project, Chuck Dillon. And there was almost $800 worth of charges where they met.
He talked
to Chuck. So I'm with you, Mayor. Breakfast with Bob. $125 for breakfast with Bob. Page 116.
Yep. And our city manager asked if I would like to have a representative from Doolin Associates here tonight, and I said no because I didn't want him to bill us for it. So I think the time has come. We at least need to start.
These are the invoices I found questions.
I know.
I ran out of tabs. Had to go to a different color. Okay, that's it for that. All right.
It was one of those things where, although it's boring,
yeah,
when you turn a page and you find something, you got to keep going through it to see what else you see. I was real disappointed. I think, to me, I feel like they're just not doing the city right at this time. I won't beat it up anymore, but something I think over the next few months we probably need to start looking seriously at. Probably before we start the next road project.
There's some way we can get Public Works involved in this a little bit more, because they're the ones that deal with these people. Do they like them? There's a better choice out there?
Well, a lot of it's building and zoning and planning. It's probably most of it.
Yeah, Linda would be the one to, if you had questions. She's the one that works closely with Al. And Public Works is primarily because of the roadway functions, those projects.
I think you guys are dealing more with outside contractors on getting things done, I would think. Is that correct, Megan? Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. But, and maybe I'm wrong, but from my discussions with an engineer that does this kind of stuff,
we shouldn't have them supervising their own work.
no, survey services for Kitty Stewart Park. How much does it cost to get a residential lot surveyed? $100? $2,500 for Kitty Stewart Park? Anyhow,
Yep.
I don't know that I need to say anymore.
No, it's a pretty big line item. I mean, it's the way this plays out, and I know Al's here a couple days a week working in the office. He's our highest paid employee by far. So, is it worth it? That's something we got to discuss, because that's a $570-some-odd thousand without going out to bid or getting another opinion, just having one person that's not a employee of the city. I mean, that seems like a lot of money to me.
Well, and as you can see, we're just getting billed at will. It's just, I'm looking for the bill for typing up the invoice. I don't see that on here. Okay, I'd like to carry this forward then.
If I could just, I've done a lot of public procurement and so forth, and so I can help the manager with an RFP. We will have to comply with the CCNA, the Consultant Competitive Negotiation Act, because it's engineering services. So I think if at the regular meeting, if the commission chooses to do that, all we'd really need to have is a scope of service that the manager, feels is appropriate. And we could certainly write into any resulting contract with whoever gets picked, whoever wins the process, an invoice review process. I don't know what the current contract has in there, but so that you won't get at-will billing, because that's kind of unusual. Usually a government has somebody that's on the inside signing off on every invoice, and if they do not see something that's either under the contract or was authorized, you reject it. And so that's something that we may need to build in as well.
Yeah, we need to get a handle on it. It's to me, it's out of control. Okay.
Mayor, can I just clarify, because I've heard two things. I've heard one, hiring an engineer, and then I've heard one, having an RFP. So I just want to make sure we're going the right route. Like as Rob said, that would be, an RFP, so we would be having an engineer on staff, but it wouldn't be our employee. Or do you want to research the market and see what it would take to have an engineer here, like a city engineer, and they could be the ones that would be supervising the projects and so forth?
Well, I wonder if we should just workshop this thing in particular.
Yeah. Work on the pros and cons of, like, hiring an engineer.
In all fairness to Al, because I believe me, I believe what you're saying with the invoices and stuff, but, he has worked here a number of years, and I think, we should invite him, if he wants to come on his own volition, to the workshop meeting and, let him explain the rationale behind some of these.
Well, tell him as long as we're not getting a bill from him to come to our meeting, if he wants to come and explain this, and I hate to say defend himself, but I think some of these need some and I'm not going to go spend hours going page by page. I did flip through, and there are things that stand out, the phone calls and stuff like that. Yeah, you're so good.
Set up desk, $312. But anyway, that only because I used to do timed bills, so I used to look at my own bills and make sure, is this something my client would pay? Yeah. The whole goal is to make your client feel good about paying the bill, and this.
So do we want to have a workshop on this? Do we want
to? 500.
Do a workshop on it, even if we just
We've
have
got those other big projects coming up, and we've got a lot more building coming up.
Well, I know, and right now, Al's in the thick of it, of all that stuff. It might be a hard transition right now, but
we wouldn't take him off the projects that he's already working on. I mean, we would just go out to bid or or entertain any new projects that come in with another deal. Yeah, or we just get some answers on his billing procedures. I mean, I think that's, we should be, not that we need to approve every contract or every line item, but we should be approving every project that we're assigning him to. I don't think, shooting fish in a barrel in here and sitting in the office and getting every project that comes down the road, I don't know if that's the best use of our stuff, but, and there's, a lot of these projects are smaller in comparison to the ones that actually require, I forgot there's a law, something on it. Any chance you know what that is?
Yeah, that's what
he was talking about.
Continuing service agreements, and there's so much dollar. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to, but you have to limit the amount of financial consideration for different projects. So they can't go over a certain amount each year, and I think it used to be $2 million, but I think they just raised it.
It's all in the CCNA, and so I think it's a 287.055 is the statute. But, you know, when you workshop it, because Mr. Trask will probably be here as opposed to me, you know, my 2 cents is you really need to focus in not just on the particular person currently doing it or whatever, but what the city really needs to have done, because I know a lot of governments face this. And so you have somebody who's a PE, who's a licensed professional engineer, they certainly have the training to look at whether the truss is, whatever, but then oftentimes government agencies also need project management skills, which a good engineer does not always make a good project manager. And so that's where in your scope of services or what you're looking for, if you're going to go the firm route as opposed to the employee route, you know, you'd add that. But if you do an employee route, which a lot of governments do have an in-house engineer, just make sure that you get somebody who is experienced in managing projects. Because my sense is in dealing with Al on like the FEMA stuff and so forth, he's turned to shepherd projects, which really isn't an engineering function, but he's the one asked to do it. So if that's a skill you all need going forward, make sure whichever route you go, whether it's an employer or contractor, that you get those skill sets.
Okay.
So we ask planning and building and all for the wish list. What do they need? What do they want? I think we can very easily pass a project on from one engineer to another. All they have,
okay.
If the new engineer wants to work, they'll review the file on their own dime, typically. I know lawyers do that, taking over cases and, you know, had to spend hours and hours and hours looking at, you know, getting up to speed. But then, you know, then you're up to speed.
Okay. And so I guess probably the biggest thing we need to decide is if we want this out on RFP or if we want to hire someone and do it in-house. And the big thing is there a skill set out there that we can get somebody for an in-house engineer?
Yeah, is it realistic?
Is it realistic? We may be
major
too
hotels
small to be
going up.
able to afford our own in-house engineer. Steve, did y'all ever look into that? Was there any?
Well, if I can suggest, why don't we work on the workshop to vent all these different thoughts on it and where we want to go. I'll try to do some research on what city engineers are paid in, you know, particular jurisdictions, hopefully somebody that's more in our area. I know a lot of them outsource it, you know, because it's, you know, sometimes like Rob said, you got to make sure that you have somebody that has those skills, not necessarily just being an engineer. So, but we'll look into that and we'll put something together and you know, I know we're probably with the budget and everything else, we're going to be doing a lot of workshops, but I think this one's important to get out there and address it one way or the other.
Okay.
Plus, we have an engineer.
Yeah.
Who can help us out with this? I don't care.
Now, what are you doing in
You're
your
in the
spare
club.
time?
You're in the club.
Okay. Any public comment? Yes, sir, Bob.
Bob Preston, 425 South Bay Shore Drive, Madeira Beach. You know, I've been talking about this for a couple of years, and I'm glad you're getting around to it. I mean, you got a fox watching the hen house here. You know, it's pretty sad. If you take the dollar values from 2017 to now, and you average it out, it's $253,000 a year. What can you get for $253,000 a year? I think it's probably a hell of a lot better than what you can get now, what you've got now. And you're not going to have to pay that much. You know, you have in-house engineers, and they take care of this stuff. But when you have a specialty project, then you hire, you go out to contract. And those are hard money contracts unless there's a change order. You get charged for the change order type thing. But this was a red flag a long time ago for me. So I'm glad you're looking at it. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, next is item H, newly installed gas pumps. I've pretty much beaten that to death, but I will ask Brian, why did we end up with not having pay at the pump pumps?
Mr. Mayor, we did a bunch of research. We contacted 5 or 6 different marinas and some of the vendors, and the consensus was don't do it unless you're doing kind of a commercial area. The pumps that were highly recommended to us, the ones we ended up with, these PMCs, they do not offer pay at the pump. We can't do all the discounts. We could do the resident one like you discussed with the cards for the residents with boats, but we do 50-gallon discounts, we do Boat US discounts, and with our commercial fleets as well, but they wouldn't be using cards that way. But it wasn't the right method. We need a lot of control down there. People mess up constantly. They put diesel in regular boats. In jet skis, they put diesel in jet skis.
What's that got to do with the pump?
We need to be able to control and make sure that when we authorize the pump, we turn the pump on for them, we go down there. We have an iPad with software that's connected to our point of sale. We can do that down on the fuel dock. So we can take the iPad down there, got a credit card reader, and we can do it remotely that way. But we need to be able to control what people do down there because people mess up all the time. And just to let people pay at the pump like that, I think is bad business in that setting.
Rentals?
Don't you think that this commission deserved for you to tell us that in December? We authorized a check for $35,000 for those pumps.
We did, and I've been thinking through that since you mentioned it earlier, and if I implied in some way that we were going down that road, I apologize, because I don't believe I did.
Yes, you did.
Okay.
Look at the tape, December 9th meeting. Thank you. Any other discussion? Bob, is that a hand up or are you rubbing your head? Okay.
You know, I know Robert Preston, 425 South Bay Shore Drive, Madeira Beach. This is not about the pumps themselves. This is about fueling the boats. And I know Alaska is a totally different place, but it's the environment that we're concerned about out there. We're talking about spills, we're talking about injuries, fires, all this type of thing. Where I did a lot of boating, in many of the communities in Alaska, the owners of the boats didn't fuel their boats. The operator of the dock filled the boats because they know what to listen to when you're fueling that boat, when it's starting to change that sound, when the tanks are getting full. Not the gauge, but there's a sound that's going on. They know what type of boat, the situation where you put diesel in a gas unit or you put gas in a diesel unit. You know, these people that rent the boats or whatever, they don't know what the hell's going on. You know, I just think it's beyond me. And it puts, if you have a spill there, who's liable? Is the city liable because you let somebody do something stupid? That's the question I have. Well, I was watching them, and they just let it go over, and you have a spill. We still have a spill. We need to prevent that, and that's why I think it's important that we fuel the boats for these people. That's just my take on it. Thank you.
Next is evaluation of enterprise lease vehicle agreement. Director Laughlin.
Thank you. So I wanted to put this on the agenda because over time I've heard some concerns and issues voiced by both departments that are driving these vehicles as well as commission. So also with budget season approaching, I wanted to evaluate this further and see what potential options could be in store for the city in the future that may impact the budget. So I guess in digging into this agreement further, which I had no part of entering into as this preceded me, I pretty much came to the simple conclusion that I find it to be quite illogical as to why we ever entered into this agreement for several reasons. So number one, the square mileage of the city is 1 square mile, right? So 3.3 square miles total, which 1 mile is drivable land. So I've worked with municipalities on a fleet management program with leasing. Works especially well with police cars because there's a lot of wear and tear. They drive a lot of miles. There's a lot of repair and maintenance activities, and so if that part of that lease and there could be a maintenance program that helps defray those costs, it makes perfect sense. We don't have a police force. We introduced this, from my understanding, tried to introduce this to the fire department, but there was a lot of customization on those vehicles, so that didn't work. So we're left with 8 vehicles in a 5-year lease. And so based on the number of miles that are driven, as a finance director, seeing the interest rate of, almost 6%, that kind of gave me the chills. And then just the logistics surrounding the maintenance program. So we have a very qualified, from my understanding, a very qualified mechanic on hand, a much simpler way to go in, and we're talking just, SUVs, Chevy Equinox. I mean, these are just basic needs of oil change, periodic fluid change, in and out and done, low-cost maintenance. But instead, from my interviews with the department heads that utilize these vehicles, there's a lot more effort involved to go to find a Jiffy Lube that will service under this program, wait a while to get the authorization for enterprise to pay for the maintenance. And of course, all of this is embedded in the cost of the lease, of which I think there's just a less expensive option had the city just purchased these vehicles outright. So I never really fully understood why we got into the lease, this lease program. I don't think the city needs, based on its size and volume of fleet, needs a fleet management program with a consistent, 5-year turnaround and get new vehicles. It makes a lot more sense for a very large municipality with a fleet department with tens to hundreds of vehicles. So I don't know why this was entered into. And then everyone I've talked to that has the vehicles I haven't gotten any internal support for maintaining the program. Of course, Enterprise loves it because they're in the business of moving metal, and they want to take your vehicle, sell it, give you a nice brand new vehicle 5 years later, and you've got your nice new shiny car. But I don't think financially, even operationally, it's in the best interest of the city. So I say that because I want to let you all know if we all kind of feel that way, we don't need to maintain this perpetual lease cycle, and we can start looking at other options and discussing them, sooner than later as we approach budget season. So basically, the decision making and as I put in the memo, I want to leave the decision making to the individual departments. But if I was a department head and I liked my vehicle and I could see myself driving this thing for 8, 9, 10 years, we might want to start looking at potentially buying it getting out of the lease, buying it outright, and holding on to it. Because again, low maintenance, we have an on-site mechanic, no longer will incur the embedded interest costs in the lease, and over time, financially, it will make more sense to the city than maintaining a lease, returning the vehicle and getting a new one. But if the department has other ideas, like they want a different vehicle, or after 5 years they want a new vehicle, then maybe we explore other options. So I just wanted to raise that to the commission. Again, my personal opinion, but I've also interviewed staff, and I feel overall they feel the same way. And I think that's just one thing that we can potentially explore during budget season as to what to do with these vehicles in FY22 and beyond, depending on the intention of each department with the vehicles that they have.
I agree with Andrew, and that's why we spoke about this. And there's also another consideration too. I think we need to practice what we preach. I think we need to look at fuel-efficient vehicles, hybrids, electric vehicles. We're an island community, and for the most part, we need to address being good stewards of our environment. And I know some of the trucks, they haven't, the hybrid technology really hasn't gone out there to trucks where it's affordable to municipalities. But at least as we replace cars and so forth, I'd like to come back to you all with that idea in mind that, this is a purchase that, we can be proud of. And I know Andrew himself drives an electric vehicle, and, we're looking at grants for charging stations and so forth, so we can expand upon that. And we've even had some discussion with our building code of requiring certain types of buildings to have parking stations in them. So I think if we promote and protect our paradise by practicing what we preach, I think is another good avenue that we have by getting out of this agreement.
Well, it's costly to get out of a lease before the lease runs out.
Right.
Looks like some big trucks.
Yeah.
For our little island.
Yeah.
Can we get those little small Fords instead of these? We got 4x4s. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 of them in here.
Megan?
Yeah, give us your opinion.
I have the most amount of vehicles on the lease program than any of the departments. We have 5. Okay. The F-250s that you see are the ones that have the hoppers on the back. Okay. So they have the 3-yard dumpsters that are used for picking up the village, to do the beach accesses, and to do the parks. So they may seem like they're big trucks, but in all reality, we have bigger trucks than that. So personally, we were not a fan of the lease program from the get-go. We argued against it for the same facts Andrew had mentioned. We have a mechanic. Their biggest reasoning was maintenance cost. Well, let's be honest, on a brand new vehicle, the maintenance cost is slim to none. It's oil changes, not very big, so oil changes maybe once a year. And in the lease program, tires are not included, nor are batteries. And we have already had 2 of the vehicles have had to have replacements on batteries, and the tires are wearing on other ones. So, in our opinions, we would prefer to not move forward.
Do we like the vehicles?
Personally, every vehicle in our department showed up with damage. Either surface rust, dents, scratches. Deb's truck showed up and the pump on the water wasn't working. It was minimal cost to fix it rather than taking it off the road for 2 weeks. We spent a little bit of money to fix it.
I think probably what we should do also is if we go to our own trucks, I hate to bring up Chevy trucks, but the Fords are aluminum bodies, and we're not going to have rust issues out here on the beach.
We like the Fords a lot better than the new Chevys.
Yeah.
We do. There's multiple reasons. The Fords have better turning radiuses than the Chevys do. But the problem with Fords are they're hard to get right now because there's a chip manufacturing issue.
Everything.
But I have a new Ford on the way currently right now.
City's purchasing?
Correct.
Okay. Is there any way you can put a pencil to it and see how much it would cost us to get out of this lease?
Yeah, so I did that. So in the exhibit, which I apologize for the small font, but in the exhibit, there's two tables. One, if we keep the lease, so it has the delivered price for each of the 8 vehicles. If we decided to keep the lease, keep the vehicles for the 5-year lease term, you can see the lease term date in 2024. At that time, if we wanted to maintain the lease until then, and then there's sell the vehicle or purchase the vehicle, that's the book value. So essentially the enterprise fleet management representative informed us that we're on the hook for book value. So at the expiration of the lease, that would be the book value. What they do is after the 5 years, they sell it on your behalf, and then there's a small variance in the proceeds, so the proceeds exceed book value. They then attribute that to your next delivered price to reduce your delivered price and get you right back in the next vehicle and another new 5-year lease. So we could either, if we wanted to maintain the vehicles for the full 5 years, there's the book value we would owe. If we wanted to walk away from the lease today, it would be at current book value, and that's at the second table. Again, same delivered price, but and then your current book value, I think as of April, is listed there for each of those vehicles. And as you can see, that month, we're $700 of interest. So interest is hefty on it, but those are the options. If we wanted to get out of the lease, we would buy it at book value.
Andrew, you've earned your second gold star for today.
Yeah.
This was not only was this costly, but it was a bad deal. I mean, it was just, you look at the interest, it's almost like, and I went on blood pressure medication after this deal got signed. I mean, that's how much I hated this when it was brought in front of us. As the mayor just said, to go back to something. This is what we used to do. I mean, some of these trucks that we had were 25 years old, 20 years old. I mean, because we had a truck, when I first got to the rec center, we had one truck. And I'll tell you what, how old was that damn thing? It's probably still running, isn't it? It was a 97, but it only had a few thousand miles on it because it rides around the island. I mean, that's it. So, I mean, just a disastrous deal. So anyway, you can get us out of this. Let's just put this to bed and move on with our lives because this is just fiscally responsible. Okay, thanks.
So let me make sure I understand that. The delivered price column, 246,000 plus, right?
Yes.
That's the column if we continue the lease, and that's what we're going to pay for the next. No,
that's.
Where's that? Or is that anonymous?
Oh, if
I want to make a side-by-side comparison.
So we're making monthly lease payments that reduce book value as each month, each year that transpires. So currently, what is our current book value? What we would owe on all of those vehicles currently, if we wanted to stroke a check and get out of this thing, would be $190,028.
To get out of it.
Now.
Currently, correct.
And return the trucks.
No, we would get the truck.
Well, we would own the trucks.
They will be our
trucks. Oh, we would own the trucks.
If we return the trucks, then there's get it wholesale versus current book value, and then that's what we would owe. So we would owe something regardless. We can't just return the trucks.
I know that. I'm just trying to.
So if we wanted to own the vehicles, we'd fork over $190K. If we just wanted to return the vehicles, or we could buy them and sell them.
They may not let us return the vehicles, is what my fear is. I mean, a 5-year lease, they're like, yeah, you can return it, but you're paying me still So,
Right.
I mean, that's generally how my leases worked, unfortunately.
If we wanted to get a different vehicle, and I can explore what would be the most financially prudent exercise, but in my estimation, it would be buy, own it, sell it, and then get whatever other vehicle that we wanted.
Okay. Then if the department wants to keep that vehicle, they could do that.
We could do that.
Then we can keep the Fords and sell the Chevys, is that right?
Well, maybe Deb likes her
Deb liked the
Chevrolet
truck that
Silverado.
she lost that had 79,000 miles on it.
All right, so that one would be sold. Well, they're in demand now, so.
It actually is probably a good time to sell a used vehicle.
Can we split it up?
You need a truck, don't you, Andrew?
I'll stick with my Tesla.
Can we split it up by vehicle, each, set a package deal?
No, you can do it vehicle by vehicle. That's why in my kind of memo recommendation, I'm kind of punting to the department to say, what is their overall intention with the vehicle? If they like it and want to keep it 8 years, it would just seem to make more sense to me than we can just buy out of the lease early.
Buy out at 190,000, and we've got all the vehicles.
That's if we want to do every vehicle, correct? Yeah.
Oh, we would.
Yeah, just
Get out of the maintenance.
get out of it,
I
period.
think it's a
Nightmare and
cleaner
everything.
deal. Cleaner deal, doing
I think we better
I
budget
think
that.
that's,
I mean, we're those costs. We got maintenance, the maintenance management package that's embedded in these costs. We've got this GeoTab GPS tracking device that's highly underutilized that we're paying for. So it was a bad deal.
Cut our losses,
yep,
I think.
I agree.
We called this from day one.
Do we need
I
to take
remember
this,
you.
take this to the regular meeting for a vote?
Well, I'm wondering if we
Well,
should do this because of the amount of money, if we should do this as part of our budget.
Yeah, I mean, at this point, what's another few months? I think what we can do is just through the budgeting process and through our capital budget presentation, and state our intentions and.
Then I can check with the individual department heads and see, if that's a vehicle they want to keep, that's fine, and if it's not, then we'll sell it and get what they need.
Yeah, that'll be after we buy them.
Right.
Yep.
Okay. Let's go ahead and do that then.
Yep.
Sounds good.
Okay.
Public comment?
Any public comment on this? Okay, next is proposed Public Works building. Commissioner Hudson.
Okay, this came about with looking at the building or the property on 150th, but need to kind of prepare for this, and turns out we already had in 2019. We've got several pages of what they would like to have in a public works building. So I think that moves us further ahead. We'll know if there's existing property, does it match this? If we have something that's too small or too big or whatever, we'll know that. And maybe if it comes to buying a piece of property and building something, already have the plan for what they want.
I think it's a pretty good-looking building for a...
Megan, did y'all have this done? You've been through this?
Wrote the memo.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yes, you did. Okay. I
We
see.
did have this done, previously asked by the administration to get plans for a building. Not the only plan that we have for a building. There's another one.
Right.
That was from 2016, I believe, because Public Works has always been on that site. That's always been Public Works, even before it was a marina.
Right.
That's when the building was there, and the reason why the building was torn down is because the commission didn't want to pay $40,000 to repair the roof. So rather than repairing the roof, they demoed the building. So, very nice to have a facility that we could, you know, store equipment and have a building rather than a shed.
And the maintenance of some of that equipment too, you know, with it sitting outside, it rusts. So it's a lot better if we could get it undercover.
Yeah.
Well, just out of curiosity, is it so that when we do the high dry, we can go over that Public Works building?
Well, we, you know, and Andrew and I had a conversation about the high and dry study. It just seems like these ancillary aspects of the project is what's been tying this thing up, you know, and they're trying to get cost estimates and doing it. So, I basically talked to Andrew about this. We just need to get the high and dry figures, and then, you know, we can figure out as we progress with the high and dry how we can design it, and apparently they've already somewhat designed it with having a Public Works building that would be like an L-shaped around the high and dry building. Again, I haven't seen any plans or no, you know, and it'd be unfair to Megan if she can't comment on something that, you know, they're coming up with. So we're hoping here shortly we'll get something, and I can get staff to take a look at it, and then we'll bring it back to the commission and say, hey, this is what they came up with. But to me, you know, they're getting bogged down with worrying about a restaurant. They're getting bogged down about worrying about Public Works. Yeah. Let's worry about the high and dry, right, and then, you know, add whatever we can add to the site later. And, you know, they were even getting bogged down over the lease amount that we get in on the cell tower. Well, the cell tower's there. I mean, it has nothing to do with the high and dry.
Right.
So, you know, let's just get back to the basics and get this thing done.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, if we build a building, you know, I had looked around at property on the island. It's just too expensive to buy property. The garage would have been perfect, but
I'm still checking other parcels, not in the city right now, but, you know, it's as things come up, and I've got some feelers out there too. So we'll just have to see. Obviously, we want something in proximity to where we're at, but it might be something we can do.
yeah, Brooksville's too far to drive.
I can't remember who I was talking to who brought up that very tall warehouse right as you're leaving Madeira Beach on 150th, and it splits to St. Pete and Seminole.
Yes.
You go to the Seminole, and then you're looking at this building, and
right,
an artist has his work.
Correct.
Right.
I can't remember. I think it was a citizen, I guess, who suggested we look into that area.
I
that
did.
looks like a kind of depressed area.
Apparently, they weren't interested in selling that particular building. I don't know if it would fit our needs yet or not, but I just made some preliminary inquiries, and, you know, but again, things change as, you know, the prices have increased. You know, some people decide, well, maybe now it's time to get out of this investment. So it just, you got to just stick with it, and it's kind of like buying a house nowadays. You just got to stick with the process, and hopefully you find something. So, but at least while we're waiting on the high and dry stuff, we can work on looking at other opportunities that we have for a building site or a existing building that's there that we can, that'll fit our needs. Okay. So
where are we parking our trucks now?
at the Blue Barn, as they call it, up on Bay Pines, we're renting a warehouse space that's there in a lot.
Okay. Across the street from Bay Pines? Hospital area?
Oh, I'm sorry, I thought you meant the garbage trucks.
I did mean the garbage truck. Well, everything.
Well,
Where's our
some of the
stuff?
trucks
It's on
are here.
95th.
Where's our stuff?
Turn by Wawa's.
Turn
by Wawa's and go down.
Yes, okay.
Yeah, so we have we call it the Blue Barn.
Okay.
That's where the mechanic is, that's where all the garbage trucks are, and the claw truck stays over there. We will never bring the garbage trucks back on the island, even even when we were going to build a building, just because the unsightliness and the smell.
Right.
So they, no matter what, they would always stay over there.
So
The rest of our equipment is
guys
at
are
the...
parking too.
I'm sorry?
I say, so that's where all the guys are parking also then?
The sanitation guys park over there. That's where they clock in. That's where all their stuff is.
Thank you.
Anyone else on the commission? Public comment?
My wheelhouse.
Good.
I hate to differ with Megan, but in 2009, the city of Madeira Beach started to look at what to do. When Nancy Oakley refused to, made a big stink about fixing a leak in the ceiling, tear the building down instead. And once again, it was the underlying theme was to get rid of the marina, privatize it or sell it, get rid of it. City doesn't want to do this and all. So back in 2009, we have the special area plan, Madeira Beach Town Center Special Area Plan. So 2009, we started with, coming up with all these things. And just so happens that I happen to have, and I'll give it to you at a reasonable price.
Not going to cost me a lunch.
Plan for your new high and dry, plus you will have your Public Works Department. The engineers, whoa. All right, I didn't mean it, Megan. The whole idea was to get the Public Works in there, and especially the garbage trucks. The engineers guaranteed you will not smell anything. That the bays that they will go in will wash the trucks, and the air will be clean, sanitized. No one will ever know that there is a garbage truck in that area. That was one of the key elements of this whole project. So if you look, we have the plans right here. So let's not go back to square one and start. We've been going through this now for 11 freaking years. Back and forth, back and forth. Majority of the people want this developed. A very small minority of the people do not want this developed, and they're going to bury you and do a study here and do a study there. It's been done. Either if you want it, then make the thing, or forget about it. And my suggestion at this point, if you're going to succumb to the few people, sell the damn property and get out of here. Because I've had it up to here. For 11 years, we've been begging. This is for the city of Madeira Beach. You talk about your taxes going up. This is our revenue income stream that is necessary. If you don't want the high and dry, you just want the Public Works, that's fine. Bring the Public Works back, get the people back on there. A beautiful building was initially proposed before the high and dry, and that's what we have the plans for here. This one, I think, has the high and dry in with it. Move forward on this, and you're going to get opposition, but believe me, the majority of the people want this. That three-phase operation of that marina was the land side, the water side, and the high and dry. Now, we did the ship store, which was part of it. There was supposed to be more docks put in, but there was arguments about that. And then may I just have another minute, please? We were also supposed to have the extended, maybe some racks to have at least some stacking that we could increase the inventory of the boats that we could keep on site. I'm so happy when I saw this, and this is the reason why I stayed here tonight. I looked through and I found some of these papers. I'll bring them to Bob. I think it's important, but do it. Do it. You won't be sorry, but you're going to get opposition. I'm telling you now, you're going to get opposition. You're going to get the same group of people that are going to come in, and they're going to want every type of study in the world done. Don't fall for it. Don't fall for it, please. And just to get back for a minute on the leasing, we used to buy vehicles from Florida had an organization of all the municipalities, and they would buy the vehicles, and we'd buy from them. And for years, it worked great, because the thing was, we don't go on mileage, we go on hours. Mike Maximo used to always argue that, because people would say, oh, the mileage and all. Mike says, we don't go mileage, we go hours. How many hours has the engine been running? When it reaches a certain point, that's when we sell the vehicle and we get a new one. Because a lot of time it's idling, it's sitting and idling. And like you say, we're in a small town, you're just not driving anywhere, so you're not putting mileage on, but you're putting hours. The same thing like a fire truck. Doesn't put a lot of mileage on, but the hours are what builds up, and that's what we go to. But I'll have this for Bob, and thank you so much for coming back to this project. Just stand together now. You're my new guy over here. This is your district. You be a fighter for this. I want to hear you loud and clear. If you start supporting that small group that is against this, we're going to have big problems on our street. Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
Steve, thank you. And Ray, I don't know if you know Steve. Steve was a commissioner here during this and has these plans. That's why I wanted to hear more from him about it. So, Steve, we appreciate all your help on this. Thank you very much, sir.
You kept it.
And I'll get it back to you. And Steve, this is, I ran on building that high dry, and we had all the support, and
So did he.
I'm gung-ho on, and so did Happy, and as far as I'm concerned, I'm gung-ho. We will build a high dry in Madeira.
The biggest concept which we wanted to impress upon everyone, this is the entranceway to our city. People come into our city, we want them to see something beautiful. And that's what we were telling the architects. Whatever you design has to be something that people look and takes their breath away. On one side is the 9/11 Memorial, the other side is our Marina, which we're so proud of.
Yeah, and high dries are not like they used to be. Just looks like another condo building, and they don't use tow motors anymore. It's all electric crane. It's quiet. It's clean. I visited one down in Fort Myers. You could eat off the floor in the place.
Yep.
I've got a video of it on my phone if anyone would like to see it.
And the solar panels on the roof will pay for itself. It'll run for nothing. And I have solar on my house now. My bill last month was $11. Swimming pools, spas, air conditioning, everything and all, $11. Solar works. This building, not one solar panel. That was a shame that we bypassed.
Thank you. A lot of good input from Steve.
Yep.
Okay, next is sanitation fee update. Mr. Daniels?
It has me down, but actually, even dating back to Jamie and Andrew are working on this project, so I'll let Andrew address it.
So I guess for this agenda item, let me just clarify what my intention is and what my intention is not. So my intention is not to try to dictate to you all what I feel a revision in the fee should be. What my intention is to present you all with my methodology that we can determine through the budgeting process and eventual adoption of the budget what the fee revision could and should be beginning October 1st of 2021. And so either you give your buy-in on the methodology, or you feel that you want a more perhaps sophisticated approach and go with an independent fee study, of which no problem, you won't hurt my feelings, but this is your no-cost fee study performed by the finance department. We're not charging you for it, so good thing. So first of all, the need. So just in my background in the memo, over the last 2 years, we've had a deficiency in that position in the sanitation fund, $47,000 in 2020, $62,000 in 2019. Also, another fact to point out, we have not increased our sanitation fees since 2015. So our fees have gone stagnant, but certain variable costs have increased over time. So I think the need is readily apparent that we do need to evaluate this and look at this more closely through our budgeting process. So what I did is I put together an analysis spreadsheet, and that's in the exhibit. So I just kind of wanted to go through that with you all so you understand kind of my methodology, where I'm coming from, and if you're comfortable with it, then we can proceed as we go through the budget for sanitation, and that'll indirectly determine what our percentage fee increase should be for sanitation customers. So this is I have multi-year data, FY17 actual through FY20 actual, but let's focus on that FY20 actual column. So the first thing I did is in the recycling fees. So to give you some facts on recycling fees, the component of our recycling fee is, let's take for just a single family home, is $2.83. So I can pull it up. So our total fee, if we bill a typical single family home customer for refuse, $43.66 every 2 months. So it consists of refuse for $19 plus recycling for $2.83, gives you a total of $21.83, multiplied by 2 is $43.66. So while our total sanitation fee is $21.83, and that's all what the customer sees, embedded in that is your standard refuse fee of $19 plus this recycling fee of $2.83. Well, what our outsourced provider, Waste Connections, charges, or is that what who is our waste management for recycling? Is it Sorry, it is Waste Connections. Okay, so I'm right. So what Waste Connections charges back in 2017 was $2.86, so close to what we were charging. But between FY18 and 19, there was a huge jump. So it went from $2.86 in FY17 to $2.93 in FY18, then all the way up to $6.33 in FY20. Now in FY21, it's $6.44. Really easy to do the analysis on this one because we're outsourcing that entire operation, right? So we have no direct costs other than what we pay Waste Connections. So quite simply, we are charging an average single-family home residence $2.83, and we are then in turn paying $6.44 to Waste Connections. So we're losing money on that, and that's further exemplified in my spreadsheet. So what I did is say, my first logic was to say, well, whatever we're getting charged by Waste Connections is the exact charge that we should be passing on to our customers. So we'll call that a net break even on recycling. Don't need to make money, but we shouldn't be losing $4 a customer. So what I did is I broke out the recycling service fee. So for FY 2020, total sanitation and residential recycling service fees, because remember, it's all included in one bill, was $1,226,236. And then we got, my finance team got individual customer data from PCU, Pinellas County Utilities, and from there we were able to ascertain, well, of that $1.2 million, how much do we charge for residential recycling? And that was $31,509 in FY20. We also independently bill condominiums, so we are at a net zero. We break even on condominiums. The Waste Connections charges us $24.41. Well, we bill that directly to the condominiums. We collect on the condominiums. We're already breaking even on them. So we charge the condominiums $37,250. But if you take the $31,509 plus the $37,250, that's revenues that we collected of $68,758. And what we paid Waste Connections was $185,020. So that puts in real dollars the loss that we're taking on recycling. So I want to correct that, right that wrong, and essentially charge those residential customers the full amount that we're being charged by Waste Connections. So that would be step one. Step two then is to say, okay, well then let's remove all of those operating costs. Let's remove those costs from Waste Connections, and let's remove those revenues from our equation. And now we're just dealing with pure refuse services, which we provide in-house. So from there, let's determine, okay, what are our operating costs, which consists of personnel operating, so professional services, contractual services, waste disposal, which is a big one, the tipping fees that we pay to Pinellas County, postage, maintenance, uniforms, all those operating costs. And then on the capital side, I wanted to use depreciation as my capital figure. Why do I want to do that? Because let's say we go through a cycle where we purchase 2 trucks in 1 year, then maybe none in the next year, then maybe 3 trucks the next year. Well, let's smooth all those out, determine the useful life of those trucks, and that's kind of our annual capital charge, which is expressed through annual depreciation expense. So that depreciation expense essentially represents the annual capital-related costs which are largely vehicles associated with the sanitation operation. So the analysis then is pretty simplistic, that we take all of our operating costs, we say, okay, what's current revenue, and here's our operating loss. And then what percentage would we need to increase those sanitation rates by, the sanitation portion of the total charge? What will we need to increase that by percentage-wise in order to either break even or maybe break even plus 10%? And that's at your discretion as we go through the budgeting process, if you want to build in some margin, potentially for unexpected costs, or to recoup some of the losses that we've had in the prior fiscal years. And so that percentage that we want to increase the revenue by in order to hit that margin of either 0 or some level above is the across the board percentage increase that will assess to both residential and commercial customers starting 10/1/21, and then we'll be right-sized. We'll be operating at least on a more break-even or basis, and we can determine the cost structure through the budgeting process for personnel and operating for the sanitation department. I'm giving that to you guys free of charge. Didn't have to pay for a study for that one. So, it is a simplified approach, but I think it's very sensible, and I think at least in the near term, and if we want to have a very detailed, what are some things that we can do in a professional sanitation fee study performed by an external consultant, they can look at trip time, they can look at tonnage by residential versus commercial customers and try to develop a different allocation between residential, commercial, and we can go into a lot of that minutia and to assess the fee between residential and commercial. But bottom line, the fees are set, and I think determining what that percentage increase needs to be, and we just make that across the board for all customers, that'll get us to the revenue level we need to at least break even or develop some realize some operating margin, depending on what you all are comfortable with. So that's the methodology, and if you all are supportive of that, then that's what we'll go into in budget season as we budget for the expenses and then ultimately determine what the revenue should be, and that'll dictate the increase in percentage that we can implement starting October 1st.
Said this before, and I'll say it again. There's not a market for recycle. And the guy with, what was it, Waste Services, came up here. Waste Connections. Came up and said that. And I think I know that's a touchy subject, so what I would like to see us do, whether it's a mailer with a card for the residents to get back with us, let them know how much it's going to be and whether or not they want to continue with recycle.
Didn't we look at that? We have at least another year on our contract with them. That's why we said, well, we'll work on the. Well, it's been. But I think it's time to start.
It's been a year.
Yeah, I think it's time to start asking.
I think it's been a year, and I just we can't keep subsidizing everybody. I agree with I support you, Andrew, on what you came up with, because. Budgets are tight. We're talking about revenue streams, and we can't keep absorbing this. So if they're wanting to pay 6, whatever it is, whatever the figure turns out to be, then that's fine, we can do that, but I tend to think we need to get some feedback from the community because the recycle's going to the landfill and the incinerator.
Is there a chance that we could add something to your card if, talk to the recycle people, if it's like aluminum they can make money on, or that's not going to a landfill, at least we cut back and include recycling for the things that have a place to go?
Sure, we can have, in fact, we have in the past, we may still have it, the dumpsters where we don't have those anymore.
People didn't do it correctly anyway.
Yeah.
That was the problem because they...
Once it's mixed up, or it's a dirty mayonnaise jar or whatever, the whole load goes to the incinerator or to the landfill. It's a noble cause, but it doesn't work.
I agree with Andrew. I like what you worked out. I think that and trying to get our overtime under control. I don't know whether that's because we have so many special events, and it doesn't make sense to hire 2 employees, but.
Well, I think part of that may have been the beach last year when we opened up and it was getting trashed.
So overtime with sanitation, we have to remember there's only 2 holidays during the year that they are closed. And that is Thanksgiving Day and Christmas Day. On every other holiday, sanitation is working. That's overtime.
We need to stop that.
So I always have to reiterate that. Plus, you know, we pick up 7 days a week on commercial routes. We can't really miss out on that Sunday. And Sunday fees are double if you have a dumpster that gets picked up. I'm currently working on an audit of the sanitation. Bear with me, it's a mess, but we're working through it, and we're trying to come up with better ways to track the dumpsters and the pickups and such, so that we'll see a difference in that as well.
And I never understood why we pick up on Labor Day and Memorial Day and all these Mondays that are holidays. I don't even want to see people's garbage out in front of their house on a holiday, frankly.
Regardless if we
need to train our people.
Commercial pickups on Sundays or even holidays, the beach cannot be missed.
Right. No,
So the beach
I agree. I'm just talking about residential pickup.
Yeah.
I mean, that's got to free up 3 guys, right, and less overtime.
Correct.
I brought that up the day I became a commissioner. I said, what are you doing?
You know, and it'll be kind of a training process where people have to realize, hey, they're only picking up once this week because Monday's a holiday.
That's how it is all over the whole world.
So, yeah, I know.
But we do, even
I'm going to have to go buy a second garbage can to keep on the side of the house.
if a holiday falls on a Monday, we pick up their garbage the following day. So they still get twice a week pickup. They don't get skipped. Nobody gets skipped. So if the holiday is midweek, they get picked up either the day before or the day after. Our residents are very spoiled with that.
Need to get that overtime under $100,000. And now I understand it's planned. These aren't special event overtime. This is a planned overtime.
These are holiday,
why don't we hire
holidays
more
are a
employees?
big portion of that overtime.
Yeah.
Is the Broyhill cutting back on overtime?
Broyhill saves us a tremendous amount of time, and it's a one-man operation.
No.
So, yes. Rather than on the weekends it taking 2 or 3 guys to do the beach, it takes 1. And rather than 3 or 4 hours, it takes 2 at max.
The thing that cuts down on the time frame of the Broyhill is what Megan was telling me was, you know, when you have people that take their broken umbrellas and tents and chairs and they stuff them in the container, well, the flap on the top of it stays open. So when they go to, you know, with the Broyhill to pick it up, everything's going to fall out. So they have to go out manually and fix that. But, you know, we're trying to educate the public on it, and, you know, I know Megan has a couple ideas that she's working on that, but it's just one of those things.
Maybe educate the driver too, that if the lid's open.
Well, no, they know that.
Yeah, we know that. So we usually, what we do is somebody drives the beach first, checks the garbage cans. If it's open, they pick out the chair, the umbrella, the cooler, whatever it may be, and then the broil comes behind and dumps. There's an operation behind that. Thank you.
So what do y'all think about mailing cards, or however we want to do it to residents, and see whether or not we want to just do away with recycle?
I think that's probably the best way to do it. To poll on the internet or next door or whatever. I mean, it'll get to everybody. Please.
We have constant contact. Jay is very well with that, so we could set up a survey, send it out to the residents, and get their feeling on that.
Okay, and maybe, Andrew, if you could give us what that charge is going to be?
Sure.
644 minus 283.
Well, it may go up this next year.
Yeah.
I don't know about that, but, you know, could be as much as $7, or, you know, if we have an increase from them.
361 right now. I guess per month.
Well, I'm talking about what we're charged,
right.
because that's what it would go up to, is whatever they're charging us.
And if we do get rid of recycling, we then have to keep in mind that our regular refuse is going to go way up, because that's more waste that we will be disposing of. Those tipping fees are going to go up. Have to get that from Waste Connections on the tonnage that they. We do get an annual report from Waste Connections on the tonnage.
Okay.
And one other thing to consider is the county also pushes recycling because of the fact that they only have X number of amounts of space that they can, you know, go ahead and, you know, put it in the landfill and stuff. So, but the thing is, we got to look at our cost.
But if the recycling company is taking it to the same place we're taking it,
right,
I think we can haul it up there for cheaper, you know, for less money than.
Oh, I agree. I'm just saying we might get some political pushback.
Yeah.
Well, for $8 added to my bill, I feel better recycling personally.
And
it's $4 for each month for my.
Yeah, and many people may feel that way, and if they do, we'll keep going with it, but at least we've got to charge what it's costing us.
Absolutely.
But we don't need a war on our hands that you're doubling or tripling our cycle fees either. Forthcoming with them on what it's costing.
We can't have that department losing $62,000 a year.
Yeah. Know what it's.
We'll work on getting a survey together and you know, address that, and we'll get some numbers from waste.
Yeah. Well, let's see how much waste. Yeah, because if it's the same, we might as well recycle, not get the political pushback from the county.
Yeah, but we still need to go ahead with, I think, with that, what it costs the city.
Absolutely.
Public comment on this? I had two guesses. I think I was right on both of them.
Ray Kerr, 583 Johns Pass Avenue. Any survey that you put out should at least say what the mayor's saying, it's going to the same place. If it makes you feel good because they're picking it up by a recycling truck,
I disagree with it.
but it's delivering to the same place, that should be part of the survey.
Yeah, I've been to our recycling facility.
I'm just
I see it
repeating
with
what the
my own
mayor
eyes
said.
that it's working, but, all right. I'm sure some of it does, but. Well, anything smaller than your hand falls through, number one. There's
Robert Preston,
big
420.
conveyor belt,
South
so.
Bay Shore. You know, I remember the same conversation when Waste Connections were up here, and I argued against doing the recycling because it was going to the landfill. When they take the big dump truck, it isn't like they take plastics and put it in one, and they take glass and put it in another.
They divide it at the site. We have a huge recycling site. I've been there, I've toured it. I mean, unless they're trucking it in from another county, we have lots of stuff going into that place.
Where's it going?
Divide it out, glass goes one way and plastic goes another way. I mean, they're not dividing it out to put it in the landfill, I guarantee you that.
Yeah.
They can sell some of it. I think glass and aluminum is actually worth something. Everything else,
Yeah.
pizza boxes have grease on it. Folks, don't put those in there. Those get taken out and in the landfill.
And Mr. Hussey, you comment on aluminum? You stick aluminum or metal out on the street on trash days, it's not going in the garbage truck. There's people that start at 4 o'clock in the morning going around collecting that stuff. And I still am 100% against the recycling. As much as environmentally conscious I am, it doesn't make sense to spend money on something that maybe 20% is going to recycle. But I doubt that 80% is going to recycle. It's going to the landfill getting burned up.
I don't know the figures. All I know is I toured the facility at Pinellas County University. We spent like 4 hours at that place. I saw with my own eyes that the county actually recycles, that Waste Connections doesn't go to just dump everything. I mean, we're very kind to our recycle people here. We let everybody just throw everything in a bin. In New Jersey, they're super strict. You have to have, it's like different bins for every different recycle thing, and it's very strict. You don't do it right, you get fined. You're limited to a certain amount of garbage. It's weighed.
Well, and
we have
Very
an argument.
sophisticated.
Okay. Yeah, we're getting off.
All right.
We have an
I'm
argument
just saying,
here about
I keep hearing this.
recycling. We need to verify that because I've heard from county employees that it's not the case. The show and tell is very good, but the reality is...
I don't think they ship that stuff in just for little citizens who decide to learn more
Okay,
about the
we're kind of
county.
getting off
All right.
of public comments here.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
Okay. City Attorney, did you have a comment on this?
just, having just gone through a, request for proposal for solid waste in another jurisdiction, yet another complexity to kind of, talk about what you were talking about, how generous we are. The legislature just in 2019 put a new law in, I think it's 304.70622, that says that if a local government does recycling, it has to develop new strategies for how to prevent contamination. So as you go forward and talk about this, that's yet another thing of if you're going to continue to do recycling, it may add even more cost to the city because you're going to have to comply with that new.
Thank you.
Another reason not to recycle.
Well, if we're contracted with another company, they should be doing that for us. Okay, next is our Red Tide report. Director Wepfer. Wepfer, I have the hardest time with your last name. I am so sorry.
So before we move on, do we have to change our ordinance to do what? I think there's an ordinance as part of the packet with amounts changed on it.
In Madeira, in Reddington Beach, I did part of it in the ordinance, but most of it in the actual franchise agreement.
Okay.
Because the franchisor is the one that needs to deal with it.
I think
Okay. So this other documentation where it's highlighted and that's not ours,
we're
or?
going to change our rates. That changes the fees and collection manual. Then
Manual, got it.
we would do that through ordinance. And again, I think as we discussed earlier through the budgeting process, if there's parking rates that we want to change, because we talked about potentially doing that, and it may be attributing some of that delta to capital, commit for capital projects. So if you want to do any of those things, I think again we'll make another fee and collection manual change as the budget process fleshes out.
Hello again. You all should have the most recent up-to-date Red Tide report that was left on the dais for you. Again, water sampling was done. We have no presence of red tide currently. I just pulled those reports from FWC today. So Kelly Levy again is on the same standpoint. In the event we do have red tide coming, they're ready.
Kelly's the Public Works Director from the county.
That was a lot of our overtime. Was it just last year or 2 years ago?
2018 was when we got it really bad.
Wow.
Again, excuse me.
Yes,
How often do you do this? You do this every year about this time?
Red tide?
Yes.
Oh, unfortunately, yeah, it usually does come in around this time or towards the end of summer.
Through those 2 times?
I'm sorry?
You do it just twice a year then?
No, I mean, it's more typical towards the end of the summer, usually in that October, September time when the water's really hot.
Okay.
I think that's when we got it in 2018 is when it came up.
September, October.
Yeah.
Yeah, and lasted forever. They're actually looking for volunteers in each community to do a test on the water, I think on a weekly basis to keep a handle on it.
Test? Are they providing test kits?
I guess they are.
Or, because the county comes out, they don't really know how often, and tests our water on our beach. And the only time I get a phone call is if it comes back with high levels. And then they typically give it a few days and come back and test again.
Yeah.
And if it's good, then they won't throw up any flags. But if it's not, then they will switch the board over at Archibald.
Meg, just one quick question. For John's Pass, it says background.
If you look, I don't know if there's another one that's in there. Background is included in the not present. So it's very, very, very minimal amounts. I don't know if that one was included, but if it's not, I can.
But I think just to answer that question about the tests, the state also is involved, DEP, correct, with doing the testing for red tide, or is it FWC?
I personally only get the phone calls from the county.
Okay.
So I'm not sure what other agencies are involved.
I think it's DEP, and they've been, since they had the problem back in 2018, during this season, they have, I don't know if it's monthly or, biweekly, where they're actually running the test, and they update it to their website, or the county's website, probably.
WC puts it out on their website. There was one out today, and it looks like it's going up the bay and hasn't made the jump outside to go up to the Gulf Coast.
And I think the next one's coming out on Friday.
Mm-hmm. So it's just something we have to watch, and, we've already had some action plans from what they did back in 2018, so that's something that Megan monitors, too.
Any public comment? Next is Archibald Park ADA improvements.
So what we bring to you today is improvements of the men's and women's facility along with the ramp that is on the north side of Archibald Park. This project has been ongoing for, I think the PO was sent to CPWG in January of 2020. Quite some time. You guys have the plans that are in front of you, the $1,850 in the budget for this improvement. That would cover the cost of the restrooms, but would not cover the full cost of the ramp. The ramp, the problem with that is that it's not wide enough, and it's also too steep for wheelchair accessibility. So currently, right now in the men's restroom, we have 2 urinals and 1 toilet. In the women's, we have 3 stalls. What's proposed in front of you is 1 stall for the men's, 1 urinal, and 1 ADA stall. And for the women's, it would be 1 stall, 1 ADA stall, and then there would also be a changing room that would be added. So my question is, I just bring this before you to see if you would like to proceed with this project, because we would need to get it out to bid to keep the cost as low as we can, with the cost going sky high. Jenny here from CPWG, if you guys have any questions.
Yeah, it's such a bad time to be doing that for anybody, you know. Materials are just through the roof.
I think, if I may, originally when this was planned, it was all part of our continuing service agreement that we have with CPWG. But obviously, if you figure January of 2020, March of 2020, I think we do actually have a proposal from CPWG with numbers attached to it.
Mm-hmm. The total cost currently, this was maybe a couple weeks ago, for the total cost was $179,903. So all in about $180,000.
If we only have $80,000 budgeted?
There was only